Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to what would normally be your second breakfast. But today, I am sitting in the studio with Joseph C.Wolf, writer of the new Dungeon Dwellers RPG. As you can see, I've got several bookmarks. I got to the magic item section this morning at breakfast, and that's as far as I could get. I'm saving the monster book for my next reading because that's where the fun is. So, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself so my guys and gals know what brought you here, what got you here, why you're here, why are we all here?
I, I have to kind of bring this to your attention. I'm getting a crossfeed in terms of the audio. I'm hearing
Oh, you
there's
know
an
what?
offset,
Okay,
so
let
it's
me see.
hard to hear you.
Does that work? Is that better?
Hold on,
Is that
I
better?
still hear it.
I wonder what that's from. What's up, Coochie? Let me.
Hold
I
on,
should.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on. I think it was on my end.
Okay.
Windows apparently decided to open a second tab. So,
Yeah, don't do that.
uh, in answer to your question, first of all, thank you for having me. I am Joseph Wolf, also Joseph C. Wolf, according to my birth certificate from my mom. Um, Basically, I am Reaper's writer. I designed and developed Dungeon Dwellers roleplay. I've been in the business for a very long time, but I've always been a bit of a bottom feeder and kind of living on the fringe. I'm like the remora on a very large shark. Probably don't even notice me. But I produced a fair amount of stuff for like Deadlands and a number of other different RPGs over the years, and so this is what I do now. I'm basically a glorified freelancer. So when Reaper wants something written, they have me do it, and we just dropped the bomb, and so our goodies just made landfall a couple of weeks ago, and so people are getting their stuff, and we're very excited to be here.
So how did you get your start in this whole crazy hobby?
Uh, uh right here on my wall, I have a framed Dynamite magazine that actually had the Dungeons and Dragons article. This is actually one of the real magazines. It's all
Wow.
framed up. I read about it in the third grade during a free period. And even though I had no knowledge of it or understanding, I knew I wanted to be part of it. I was the kid reading all the science fiction and fantasy, and my head was in
You
the
don't mind me
clouds.
asking how old are you?
I'm 55.
Okay, okay. I
Yep. And
I
so,
always like to
anyways,
know
this is
compared
where it
to
started.
like you said you got into it in the third grade. I got into middle school, but I'm 59, so kind of around the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
I, I
totally.
I got into the hobby because of not just Dungeon Dwellers, but honestly, before Dungeon Dwellers, I got Galacta 25, and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I have I literally I not only do I have every sealed original blister pack, the boxes and sealed boxes, but I've also got the third edition that came out with Jim Wampler and David A. Thomas, the Galacta 3. I've got all that. I played it, and I played the hell out of it. Then my friends start talking Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, well, I can't afford that, but I can afford Crypt of the Sorcerer, and I got it. The paint and play set. Any chance we'll see some of those come back? Like a, uh,
So I have no insights. However, I do have an opinion. I asked. I said, one of the neatest things we could do to support everything is produce some classics, and producing the classics would be like boutique items, which means limited print runs, and original molds, and things like that. Just to kind of sort of scratch the collector's itch.
mhm.
Um, but producing anything in a box is like really crazy expensive nowadays.
Yeah, the box costs
And
more than everything else.
oh my god, dude, it's crazy. And the thing is that every step along the way costs the company money. So it's like,
Mhm.
you get the boxes printed, and then you get the goodies printed, and then all of it has to be assembled,
Yep.
and then shrink wrapped, and then it costs a lot to ship. So because shipping has gone crazy.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I just went to
I
the
would love
middle.
to see that. I agree with you. I would love to see if we can if Reaper owns most, if not all, of the heritage molds. They bought them. Ed Pugh bought those when he created the
Well,
company.
they own the Dungeon Dwellers. They don't own some of the other
I don't.
things.
I don't. Yeah, I have no idea. So, but it would be
I'm
cool if we could get those under the roof again. But it's a low priority to compared to everything else
Yeah,
that we want to
exactly.
do.
We
I
lose
think it'd be
another
cool.
one of us. We lose another collector gamer from back then every day.
Yeah, it's
Unfortunately,
sad, but it would
and
be nice. I think it'd be really cool. But that's why we incorporated a lot of the imagery and things like that because we wanted you to go, oh, and
it
get
was really nice to
warm fuzzy
see
feeling.
Dave Holloway's art in the book. Kudos. I'm a huge Chill fan, and I'm
Oh,
pretty
Jim
sure.
Holloway.
Sorry, yeah, Jim
Jim
Holloway.
Holloway.
I,
Yeah,
I, I
dude, that was
saw
a
his.
moment. Yeah, yeah. You
I,
have no idea how much that means to me. I'm a huge Paranoia fan. I'm a huge Chill fan. I have a huge block of Chill right over here.
I
Um,
got all they made up until the first edition. I have it all except two modules and the Elvira thing, and I'm working on it. But I
oh, you don't
recently
you don't have an Elvira?
no,
Well,
but
maybe maybe you should have a conversation with me after this, and maybe I can make that happen because I have extra copies.
no way.
I would,
Quick story.
dude. I have. We'll talk. We'll talk afterwards. Let's
Quick
talk about
story.
Dungeons and Dragons in the meantime.
I used to hang out with Cassandra every Friday afternoon after high school. My friends and I would all go to this radio station where she was handing out midnight at the movie tickets for Friday
Oh,
and Saturday.
cool.
So for 2 years straight, I went there with my pals, and we got to hang out with her and watch. I'm going to use that word instead of ogle. Oh, did I say that? And um, just hang out with her and just be in hog heaven. For 2 years, I got to see Rocky Horror Picture Show. Mind you, I was only 14 and I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing. Heavy
Yeah.
metal, Song Remains the Same, Pink Floyd The Wall, Lord of the Rings, Dawn of the Dead, Wizards, for 2 years, and it was absolutely awesome.
That's
Um,
cool.
so seeing his artwork, and the thing is I recognized his artwork, and I went, I know that guy. So I went and looked in the credits, and I'm like, cool.
So what
How
happened is when Jim was still alive, my boss, who was the art director at the time, he engaged with him, and he did all of that as original art. And so we were able to take all of that, and it went into the files and sat for a long time. We just didn't have anything use for it. So as we were putting together our books, because it's all been kind of sort of very ad hoc-y,
Mhm.
because my boss was learning how to do things, and I was learning how to do things. That's why we were so late. So, anyways, all of a sudden we had this cool art, and so it was like we got to put this in here. And at first it was like, well, we want to do something more contemporary. I was like, no, you paid for it. Jim's gone now. We need to put this stuff in.
Mhm.
That way now bucket list items scratched off.
Yeah,
Jim
and not to
Holloway's
mention
graces my book.
a huge tribute to his legacy because he did a lot of things,
Huge.
and
Oh yeah.
and it's like Max Carr sculpts. You could tell they had a charm to their own. They weren't perfect, they weren't Frazetta or Vallejo, but you could spot them a mile away. And I saw that and I went, oh my god, that's so cool. Knowing that he
I was
he
really
passed. What's
happy.
up, George?
I,
Um, that's got to be like I said, bucket list item.
bucket list
And
item. Yep.
um, so how did you get like hooked up with Reaper?
I was working at Ryder's Hobby Shop in Lansing, Michigan, and we were just starting to get Reaper stuff in. And there was a growing wall of green, and so I just called them out of the blue and said, "What can we do more to promote your stuff?" And they shipped me some goodies, and then we started talking, and yep, and then we started talking about a setting and expanding what was in their Dark Heaven Apocalypse, which is their first game,
Mhm.
which was like this big box. It didn't fit on a shelf. Um, Ironically, I think it's the same size as the Dungeon Dwellers role playing now, which is huge, right? But we just talked, and Ron and I clicked, and we've been the bromance for ever since. And so it was a number of years. It was like 20 years where we played around with third edition and 3X and Pathfinder, and we even experimented with Savage Worlds a little bit, but we just kind of I wouldn't even say half-assed it. We quarter-assed it because we just didn't make it a huge priority to create. So
Mhm.
a lot of stuff was written, but it just never got unified. And so I was working other jobs at the time, and I had a day job, and I was working for video game development. And I had moved out to California, and we were talking about moving back to Michigan. And so I was like, I'm 50 some years old now. It's either we do it or we don't. Why stop playing with it? Why even consider it? Why devote a little bit of resources to it to get almost nothing done? So I kind of went. I wouldn't call it an ultimatum, but I was just like, well, here's what I suggest: Dungeon Dwellers role playing. I've got these ideas for it. I've got some really neat things that we can do with it that nobody else is doing.
Very
And
true.
let's set some big goals. Let's set some ambitions. Let's go up against. And this plays into the question that somebody in your group asks: is what's the point? And the
Hmm.
point is Reaper owns Dungeon Dwellers. Reaper owns the name. They own everything about it. And
Hmm.
so this is their footprint. This is the version of D&D I would have given my 12-year-old self. It addresses very specific design shortcomings. Now, if you want to roll a d6 to find a secret door, I'm not going to yuck your yum. Play that game and love it. I encourage you to do so.
Hmm.
But this makes me happy. Where I experimented with Osric and Blueholm and Castles and Crusade, which somebody brought up,
Hmm.
specifically in relation to why bother. And the reason is CK Castles and Crusades does things great. It's a great game. Troll Lords are wonderful dudes, and they consistently generate, especially the newest edition. But we didn't own it. If we put it on the shelf, we're selling players' handbooks for them.
Yep.
Why should I work so hard to sell players' handbooks for you? And that sounds a little selfish, but that's business, right? So,
Exactly. Exactly.
anyways, Dungeon Dwellers is ours, and it's also now yours. We wanted to produce it under a license that other people can play in. We still hold on to our world. We're not opening things wide open like Dungeon Masters Guild, but it is now ours. And now we have our tent stake in the ground, and now we are free to develop all the stuff we wanted, all the setting guides and new monster expansions and everything else. And also, it's just another revenue stream when companies need more revenue streams, because that's another good thing.
You may not know this, but I work also for Emperor's Choice, and they own Arduin, and they're doing the same
Oh
thing.
yeah, absolutely.
There were these things, back in the 70s and 80s that, were kind of the first, or, as far back as you can kind of go without going into the white box, which was just a little bit before my time. I still got it, but I was already playing AD&D, and that's my main game that I run. But like you said, there's a lot of shortcomings, and as I'm going through this, there's some things about it that are not, my jam. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a very much high, ultra high fantasy. Coming from an Arduin background for the most part. But you have done some things, some amazing things. I was just telling my guys last night, the initiative system is like one of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, dude,
Can
thank
you
you for that.
explain that?
That's very kind.
It's really innovative and makes like a crap ton of sense when it comes to all the different variables. But at the same time, it's kind of simple. Can you explain it for them?
Yeah. So it came out of the fact that I wanted to roll different dice for initiative. I think it's
Okay.
fun. Um, so that's one thing, right? Two, I wanted to make. There's a lot of. You mentioned in one of your overviews where there's our weapons have stat blocks. It's not just a damage and a range, right? It has these other traits. One of the things I found over the 40 odd years I've been doing this is that people go, "Oh, great sword, I'm done. Why great sword? Well, it does the most damage. Well, what about a monster that's like immune to slashing? Oh, I'm useless now.
Mhm.
Well, that's not true. None of that is true. So the thing is that we wanted to create a lot of dials to make each weapon viable. Each of these
Mhm.
weapons exist in an armory for a reason. Somebody felt that the trait of that weapon was important. And so
Mhm.
they used it, and it was a personal choice. It wasn't just damage. Uh,
Do you remember in
and
the
so
Unearthed
initiative was just
Arcana?
one more of those little tweaks.
Do you remember in the Unearthed Arcana where it first brought out the Coppish sword, and
Mm-hmm.
it talked about disarming, but then dropped the ball. There was no. I'm currently in the market for one. I'm a huge weapons collector, and I'm constantly trying to tell my fellow GMs, like, you don't understand. This weapon does this thing. Well, there's no rules for that, so you can't do it. Like uh,
Oh well,
like a
that's no, definitely not.
like this one. You know what this is?
Yeah, it's a Basilard, also called a punch dagger
Or a guitar.
or a guitar. Yep. Well, it's an Indian guitar. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so right here and right here have a parrying quality,
Hmm.
and I kid you not, if you have two of these, and you're like a rogue or even a fighter, because it's almost a short sword, it's brutal.
Yeah.
The things you can do with it just are not covered, and you have things on your weapons like infamous. I love that one, of course, because and parrying and
Yeah.
disarming and all these other qualities. But then you actually have rules for them. Wow, imagine that. The GM doesn't have to come up with some mechanic on the fly. You've already done that.
And it gives you a reason to use something besides the great sword, the great axe, etc.
Or a mace.
And reach. One of the other things, reach, entangling, all of those traits. Yeah, they do clutter the game. I agree with that completely. And some players are going to be just great sword. That's
Mhm.
fine. That's cool. But the thing is for those that care, I've read a lot of Conan. In fact, I have the entire Conan library right here.
I've got
And
my gnome press is within reach.
I've got all the omnibuses. And one of the things Conan would frequently, he'd swap weapons based upon who he's fighting,
Mhm.
and against enemies that have weapons with a piercing quality, screw the armor, no point. They're going to be ignoring it anyways with their punching weapons. So the thing is it all made that stuff more dials to play with to make weapons more useful. And initiative, effectively, the way it works this way, kind of circling
I
back
was
around
gonna
your
do that,
original
but
question,
thanks.
um, is that initiative is a die type. The lower the die, the less fast the weapon is under the current situation where you're holding it. I'm an archer. I have a bow. I shoot. I try to shoot a couple hours a week.
Mhm.
I'm not always successful, and bows aren't just mass produced. Like there's all these different qualities, so there's different draw strengths, and then that factors into how fast you draw and you release. And so swords are the same way. A short sword versus a broadsword versus a long sword, it's just different thicknesses, different widths, and different lengths, and it's all kind of just abstracted in most games where it just comes to damage.
Mhm.
So initiative says based upon how you're wielding the weapon determines how fast it
Mhm.
is, based upon its starting trait. And so if you're smaller than that or bigger than that, it also bumps it up or down a
Mhm.
little bit. So a little halfling wielding a long sword with one hand is operating at a bit of a
Mhm.
disadvantage because that's like us wielding a great sword in one hand.
Yep.
So what happens is his initiative will be a crappier die type, probably a D4. But whereas a guy with a rapier is wielding it at a D10,
Mhm.
and so it's a very fast weapon. And what this does is it aggregates a lot of initiative kind of in the middle so that a lot of people are rolling and then the game master does a countdown from 12 down to 1.
Mhm.
And when your turn comes up, you can be like, you take your action, which includes movement and or other stuff, and your attacks. We use actions. And or you can say I delay, and then what happens is you kind of lose your turn, but you can later on interrupt.
Mhm.
Um, but the reason why I did all of that is because why do you roll every round? Well, here's why. If the game is predictable, the players get lazy
Mhm.
and they don't think creatively, they think for what works. And so if you don't know when the initiative is going to be, you can't do some very gamey things that play out at the table very unsatisfactorily. Oh, well, don't worry about it. The poison damage won't accrue initiative too. So cares, we can do whatever we want until then. Well, if you don't know when the bad guy's going to go, you can't make that judgment. So what you
Mhm.
have to do instead is pick a course of action, roll your die, and live with it. It makes for a much more dynamic game and uncertain. And that the whole point is to remove the certainty of the game. That's why I don't have you add any initiative to it, add any your dexterity to it, because Well, frankly, I have strong opinions about that because it's not always about speed when it comes to battle.
Hmm.
So, anyways, yeah, that's the long answer,
And I
basically.
noticed that I believe it's an element of the monster stat block, correct?
Yep, they have like a. I'm working on the Etten right now, and yeah, absolutely. If you look at their fighting ability, it gives you like how often, based upon their hit dice, do they get bonuses on their attacks, and it also lists their initiative die.
Which is very handy, so that you don't have to, trying to guess or whatever. And uh, can sometimes when you're creating an encounter, you're looking for specific qualities,
Hmm.
and having a quick initiative on top of a surprise, etc.,
Yep.
or a quicker initiative. Now, you brought up you don't like the dex bonus. Could you elaborate?
Nope. Yeah.
Okay.
So in combat, everything is a factor.
Mhm.
Everything's a factor. Um, do you dominate in combat? Are you aggressive? That's charisma. Are you feeling good and virile? That's constitution. Are you feeling pretty strong that day? That's strength. Um, Intelligence factors in. Wisdom, intuition factors in. If
Mhm.
all of it factors in, none of it should. And the thing is the game is most role playing games put so much emphasis on the importance of dexterity that dex wins out. And in the later
Mhm.
iterations of the game, when dexterity, when they started adding weapons that have like finesse trait and they have a D10 or a D12 damage rating, characters with high strength all of a sudden got super screwed because
Mhm.
dexterity factors into the most common saving throw in the game, dex, or various dodge based saving throws.
Mhm. Mhm.
Also, it factors into a lot of attack bonuses with range, and also
And your
armor class
defense.
defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
so much
it's
so
so
that
heavily weighted.
the term "dex monkey" came into the lexicon, and I'm guilty of it. You'd be dumb not to take advantage of it, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I totally get that. Another thing I was really impressed with was. I got to ask you a question. Are you much of a camper, hiker, that sort of thing? Any military service?
No military service, but I do like getting out. We have 3.84 acres. We like to take daily walks whenever we can, when time allows.
Mhm.
But we haven't been camping in quite a while. I like the outside. We have a nice little stretch of forest that I like to walk in.
Okay, because I didn't do military either, but I did a lot of related things. Just going to say, and I know from the experience of a lot of my friends as well as my own, the backpack is more than just a bag with a couple of straps. A
Yeah.
good backpack can make or break your entire day.
Hmm.
And how you did the encumbrance and the slots. I'm not a fan of slots unless it's done right. Like there's a game out there that I also kind of help out with called Shadow Dark, and they literally don't know the difference between a 50-foot coil of rope and three torches. There's a huge difference. I can make probably 25 torches out of a 50-foot coil of rope and some sticks. And so I'm just going to carry the rope and a knife. You know what I mean? Because it's dumb. And what you did was, well, why don't you explain how you did the backpacks for our folks out there, so I don't
Okay,
mess it up.
so I remember before after I answer this, make sure you ask me about the masterwork backpacks because there's a really funny story about what
Okay.
went down. Okay, so basically what happens is any kind of item that carries other items basically counts as like one item generally, but it
Hmm.
gives you more slots. You have slots equal to your strength, and that's modified a little bit by your size because, quite frankly, if you're only 3 feet tall, you only occupy 1/8 the space, and you can only carry approximately 1/8 of the space as well. So I reduced your encumbrance. We call it load in the game.
Hmm.
And so small creatures, and then again, large creatures also carry a proportionally much larger amount of stuff too.
Hmm.
So if you get an ogre, you're all set. You can walk out of a dungeon with all the stuff. Um, but basically, each item that occupies a space of maybe up to a cubic foot, roughly, it's very approximate, occupies one or more slots. Like a 1 pound, like a dagger is one slot. Like a short sword is like one slot. A long sword is two slots. And armor occupies so many slots when you carry it, but it's a lot less when you wear it. And so what happens is that your game master doesn't have to like nickel and dime you for each tinder twig, right? And I make that very clear, right? But if
Mhm.
you carry 100 tinder twigs in a little box, that should probably be a slot. Anyway, so if you have a backpack, it occupies like one slot or two, depending upon what we're talking about, and then it gives you like 4 or 6 more slots. And the masterwork backpacks let you like prepare a scroll for free or produce a potion for free as
Mhm.
part of your action. So you don't have to like, ready a potion or a flask of alchemist's electricity. You just have it ready to go on your action. So it's a you pay the money for the masterwork backpack, but it gives you all these. It gives you like an extra something you can do tactically. Plus, it
Mhm.
gives you more stuff that you can carry.
And you have one for each of the four food groups.
Yeah, basically. So that leads me to the story. Basically, our books, we were very late. We were like well over a year late. Um, that doesn't even include fulfillment. And so we were figuring out what we needed to put in our books. And so one of these days, I sat down and I was kind of at a deadlocked in terms of a little writer's block. And so I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if we back scroll case and our masterwork uh, potion bandolier? I wrote then I wrote up another one. Well, this would be cool for rogues, and it lets them do this. You can actually have, you can produce your thieves' tools as a free action on your turn. You know, oh, we can have one for fighters. Oh, we can have one. And so, like you said, we have one for each of the food groups. And so I presented that to my boss, and he goes, "You do, of course, realize that I already laid out that chapter, and it's already done. So what are we going to do with this?" And I said, "I don't know, boss. We can post it as a web extra later. It's no big deal. It was just to kind of address my creative blockage." He goes, "Oh no, it's going in the book."
Take care, squirrel. So one of the things I wanted to talk, there's a couple of things because I actually um, learned a couple of interesting things that I didn't understand for the better part of 50 years. Acid. All this time, I'm like, we never used acid. Never.
Not even
But now
against
I
trolls.
understand, and I should have because I am a bit of a scoundrel. And I was like, that's genius. I'm guessing, because you were on the other side of the country. I'm a Californian myself. Um, you guys were fiddling around with acid, carrying, and I mean the dissolving kind, not the California kind. You
uh,
were fiddling around with carrying acid as a get around for. Well, you failed opening that lock. You can't get through this door till you go up a level. Well, hey, boss, hey, GM, I got a vial of acid here. I'm just going to dissolve the freaking lock. Freaking genius. We didn't do that. If
I, I'm
someone,
a, I personally never defeated a lock with acid out of game, but in game, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of us that were when we were playing in high school. Were in high school chemistry, so we knew
mm,
about solvents, and so we were like,
we didn't have that
the
class here. We had
yeah,
underwater
well,
basket weaving.
oh well, marine biology school. Surfing must be really cool. But no, it was just something that was a natural extension of gameplay. And I don't remember where we first saw stats for it. It might have been in a Dragon magazine, but it was
But
always on
which
my brain as I moved forward.
I must have missed because I couldn't get Dragon magazine every month. I was a young
My
teenager,
buddy
but
Bob, his grandmother got him the subscription every year.
must be nice, and they're worth a
And
pretty
we
penny
would
too now.
circulate it. We would circulate it over
Okay,
like
maybe
the week
okay
it
now they're
came in.
worthless. I
We'd
mean,
all trade it.
they're worthless on the buy sell market, but the information I buddy of mine, we went through the first couple issues digital format wise a while ago, and nobody cared, which was really
Yeah.
weird and sad.
I lucked
But
out, and one day a guy, one of my coworkers, gave me the Dragon magazine collection on disc.
Nice,
So,
nice.
so I've got those. I'm
And
like
I think that's what
precious.
Bubba had. And that ties into the troll because it says, fire. So everybody, okay, fire, no problem. We got oil flasks. We'll deal with the troll. What's this acid crap? On the off chance that you would have a pet baby black dragon. I mean, what's up with that? We never, it just never came up, and now it's going to. Thank you very much.
Well, and it's
Um,
it's actually in the gear list twice. It's under like a typical alchemist acid that you can get out of a vial and melt stuff. And the other thing is actual real alchemist acid, which is a compressed grenade in the Game Master's
mhm,
Guide that
mhm,
causes acid damage in a burst.
mhm.
And there's like three different flavors. I think it's either two or three different flavors, which is like
Mhm.
a
That's
less good flavor
literally the
and like
chapter
a
I'm
real
reading
flavor.
now. And I was going over that with one of my other GMs that I play under. Like, how can we do that and make it so that, if I fall down the stairs, I don't dissolve, because that would be a thing.
Well,
Um,
the thing is that that's covered underneath that you failed your tumbling check down the stairs or something, or balance check
mhm,
or whatever, and then the game master can dish that out as an extra consequence.
mhm,
If you're
mhm.
if you're carrying one of those vials, it's probably not a big deal. But if you're like one of those idiots walking around with like 30 vials of alchemist's fire, you're begging me to just mangle you and
Mhm.
everyone near you. And it's not my fault. It's like I warned you, don't do that. Well, I can carry it. I'm going to do what I want. Okay, well, consequence.
Yes, and that kind of uh, ties me into one of the things I really like about this game because you really covered like a lot of things that most the older books completely missed dropped the ball on a lot of things. But one of the things I found refreshing because I deal with a lot of different players, and every game's supposed to be different, but you made it intrinsically uh, easier to do that by having like three different settings. The nice setting, the regular setting, and then the screw you setting. You know, so that the GM and the players, because like I play in a bunch of different games and I run a bunch of games and each group is different. And if I'm running a game for a bunch of, newbie high school kids, I'm not cranking it up to 11 and breaking the knob off. You will lose players and that's the last thing we want. We want to bring new people in, but we don't
Gloves.
we don't want to baby them, and we want to teach them these things. I want to teach them about acid. I want to teach them about the 10-foot pole, what it's really for. It's not really for protected for traps because you're not going to set it off. It's a measuring stick, right?
Mhm.
And so many of my players and people I talk to, they never understood that. Why do you think it's called 10 foot? It's right there in the name. It's 10 foot. Now, if you've got two of them, you can use them to carry things, which makes it
Yep.
easier. You can make a stretcher. You could carry
The most useful
prisoners.
way we ever used it was how deep is the water? That addresses, because it's the most common question is that players go, well, how deep is the water? And I'm like, well, how do you want to? It doesn't have it's not like a pool where it has like the numbers written on the side. So what do you do to find out? And the player goes, I don't know. And I'm like, well, think about it, and I'll get back to you in a minute. And then it comes back to the player, and I'm like, well, what do you do? And he goes, I stick my sword in. I'm like, okay, well, your sword goes in about 3 feet and goes, think. Oh, okay. So I
Mhm.
always encourage active exploration. How do you want to get that into it? Don't just ask me like you're
Before
reading a book.
or
Investigate. Find
I
out.
want to make a perception check. I want you to
Sure.
learn how to role play better.
Yep.
It's not a perfect world, Think about it and tell me, Like I always tell everybody, you will not find the wall safe behind the painting if you don't look behind the painting.
Nope. I
And I
searched the
do that.
room. Could you be a little more specific?
Or could you be any less specific? I'm not letting you
Yeah.
just roll a perception roll. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, when you're rolling a perception roll, you won't know you're rolling a perception roll unless I say roll a d6, and sometimes you might catch on. Um,
I'm a big fan of letting the players of giving the players the necessary cues to learn the game I'm trying to run. And
mhm.
so a lot of game masters are like, well, you should know this. I'm like, well, that's not fair. That's not cool. And as you said with high schoolers, you have to baby them a little bit at least initially,
It's not
and then
just
they
that.
learn.
It's culturally or environmentally. I'm here on the West Coast. We were more worried about how do we recharge this blaster we found versus what the use of a 10-foot pole was or acid. You know what I mean? It's just different areas promote different things, and different groups learn different things. And if you've got people cross pollinating and coming from, one state to another, you might learn new things. And so you got to kind of, read the room, and that sometimes that takes several sessions before you
Well,
figure out everybody's play style.
it's never what I want. It's not ever what you want. It's what we want. And it's in the Venn
Mhm.
diagram where we figure out what works for us as a unit. And the
Mhm.
minute somebody comes in or somebody leaves, you have to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where gaming is great, is because it's very fluid. Um, I love
It's a
that.
hell of a it's a hell of a hobby, but it's a strange one when you
Yeah.
think about it. It incorporates some of the best and worst qualities of humanity, but in the long run, you know if you've got a good group, literally like a good aligned group, you all try to be heroes. If you've got a crummy group, you try to be bad guys. What do you feel about that? Do you ever run the evil party? Have you done it? Do you try not
So I,
to?
so over the years we've had because I still play with my high school homeboys, and we're all
Lucky.
kind of on the same page age wise, and so we all kind of agree that, well, yeah, it's definitely worth exploring in the short term, but in the long term there's an acceptable degree of despicability, where the minute you cross the line it's way too far,
Mhm.
and so there's not much joy in it. But a couple years back, I ran a primitive version of Dungeon Dwellers for the Reaper sculptors at ReaperCon, and it was a new setting that I designed as a design challenge. It's called the Nine Thrones of Ur, and it's Clark Ashton Smith, Lord Dunsany style, dark kind of occult fantasy.
Okay.
And in it, the bad guys won. The sun was blotted out to some extent. The moon was fractured. Uh, the pillars of the good guys were destroyed. Many of the good gods, were slain. And then the bad guys, the fiends and the evil deities and things like that, established these like Babylonian style city states in the wreckage. But unlike this destroying everything, because the lawful evils want to build, they don't want
Mhm.
to destroy, they want to build.
And
Neutral evils
control.
want to administrate. Neutral evils want to administrate, and the chaotic evils want to expand and raise and destroy. So I built everything around like each one of these city states was ruled by like these nine thrones. And so, anyways, we played, and it was really fun. It was like dirty, and it was gross, and it was like really thought provoking in the same way like Empire of the Petal Throne is, right?
Mhm.
It was
Okay.
very weird fantasy, and it was fun, but it was like one of those one and dones. Like that's why I haven't tried to publish it, because it's a hard sell, and quite frankly, you've got Venger Satanis already doing it. We've got the
Mhm.
Flaming Princess doing Carcosa, right?
Mhm.
I don't really have to go into that marketplace. There's no compulsion, but it was really fun to
Psalter,
explore.
my autographed Psalter right here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love everything Venger does. Uh, I'm looking forward to being in one of his games one day. I was really heartbroken that this is the last Venger Con, but uh, you know, like a bad penny, he'll be back. It's just a matter of
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like,
at ReaperCon, we've just recently started attracting the guy behind Flaming Princess, and I actually spoke to him. He was it was a nice conversation,
mhm.
and I really respect what he does, even though I and I hate to say this because it sounds negative, so don't take it as negative. It's his content along with Vengers is vulgar, and not in a bad way. Vulgarity can be very good.
Mhm.
It's just like you know the children standing in line to eat out of a pot that's full of the remains of their parents. It's just vulgar, and but it's beautiful in its own way. I don't want to play those games, but I really respect their place in the marketplace.
Mhm.
Is that positive
You've
enough?
got to have you've got to have
Yeah,
contrast. It's one of the
yeah,
things I try to promote is that if it's all grim and dark and there is no contrast, then what's the point? It's
yeah.
like I often quote the line from War Games: "The only way to win is to not play the game."
Sure.
There's a game out there called I think it's Death in Space. I am I'm a lesser person from having read it. It's so bleak,
Ooh.
miserable. I wish, like in
Uh,
Red Dwarf, I wish I could get the crew to erase that memory from my data banks because it was just so awful. Just like,
yeah.
what's the
I,
freaking
I
point?
I own some of the cult stuff, and the only thing that makes cult playable is the fact that most of the monsters can be killed. Like there's ways to make it happen, and it's but you're not introducing light into the world. You're just removing a little bit of the darkness, which isn't the same thing. And
Hmm.
so it's
And
interesting. But
this
those games have their place.
I
It's
ran
cool.
I ran, believe it or not, I ran a 15 plus year long evil campaign in space using Heroes Unlimited and a mix mash of a bunch of things, where the players became super powerful, and one of their last crowning achievements was to become good. So it was worth it in the end.
Redemption arc.
No, yeah. It's one of those things that I think everybody needs to do,
So
so that they know why. It's like putting your hand in the fire. You need to know why you don't
oh
do
yeah, well, you learn, and you I do actually cover that in the Game Masters guide where I talk about the nature of the game. And what
that. Hmm.
most people want to play is they want to play morally ambiguous neutrals. And there's nothing wrong with that. Initially, there wasn't even going to be an alignment system. However, a significant amount of pressure was brought to bear, and my boss demanded it. And I don't think he was wrong. I don't necessarily think he was right. I think it was just it's something that we don't even discuss. I've had so many stupid alignment conversations with people over the years where people like push the alignment as far as they possibly can to not be evil, but then creatively try to interpret, you know. And what they did in 5e is they softened all of the evil and removed the despicability of it. Oh, you're just selfish and greedy. No. um, in a
Hmm.
universe with deities and fiends and also angels, there are creatures of pure good and pure evil and everything in between.
Hmm.
So what I did is I told my boss, I said most people you're going to run into are neutral, and so we did the default is morality, good, neutral, and evil, and the majority of the people you meet are not good. They're self-serving, and and they tend to look
Hmm.
out for themselves. That makes them neutral. A good person has to be virtuous, not the person who does an occasional good deed. That's fine. That's good. That's awesome. But you're still overall, if you look at like the big scheme of things, you're pretty much neutral. And he still disagrees on that, but
I
I'm the
like the
one.
way you did that, where you have, like you said, the morality is one level of possible alignments, good, neutral, evil. I personally think that that's the most important aspect of the alignment system. And then you go into the 9 point, or
Mhm.
the other 3 point, which is law, chaos, and neutrality, and then the
Yep.
third way is to incorporate them all. So once again, you can fit different play styles. For those coming out of BX, they can go one way. For those coming out at AD&D or 2E, they can go another way. For other people, they
I
can make
was
it
I was happy
mix and
he
match.
let me do the lawful neutral and chaos version, because that's more like Elric of Melniboné, right? That's more like and so you have characters that are oriented towards order. You have characters towards chaos,
Mhm.
disorder, and then you have everyone in the middle, and that kind of makes it a very different kind of game. I'm not aligned with evil or good. I'm aligned with these forces of order versus disorder. That's very Empire of the Petal Throne,
Mhm.
and I think
Mhm.
that's cool.
And depending on the world setting itself, can
Yep.
make more sense or less sense.
Yep.
And also depending on what kind of characters they want to play. You could literally decide the alignment system after you've gotten a list of the player character classes. Let's say, well, we got a paladin in the party and a couple of. Well, it looks like we're going to be using the good versus evil. We've got nothing but scoundrels. We can go law chaos. That's fine because I know you guys are going to go that route. Based on what you've decided to play. And again, having the options throughout different rule sets to go A, B, or C, which route you want to go. It adds to the book, but you're not like trying to carve your own 10 commandments and go, it's got to be this way. It's like, here are the best options. Pick what's good for you, because as you may have heard, what I find most satisfying about the system you've written is that it's uh, possibly one of the best systems for brand new players, for people who've never
Oh, that's
played,
very kind of you. Thank you.
because it's so many games are written as if, like, we know you've played like 12 other RPGs and now you've come here for some strange reason. You know what I mean? And they write as if you should know what all this stuff is. Now, mind you, it for some of us it's boring to read what is a hit point,
Mhm.
you know. But
Yeah.
and we've read that chapter, some of us 20 plus times from different publishers. But if you've never played any role playing game and you want the players to understand and learn how to be really good players, these are the ways. Most of the other games I look at, they assume they literally, you know, assume you have played other games before. While they may describe the same things, hit point stats, etc., they do it real quick and hurry up and get into the meat and potatoes, character classes, spells, monsters, etc. And you're literally helping to teach these new players. If I was going to recommend a game for people who want to play Dungeons and Dragons, I definitely wouldn't be recommending anything after 2E, and maybe not even 2E because I have issues with that. And 1E, well, it's my go-to game still to this day. I just ran a game last night. It's really for a certain group. It's not geared toward younger folks because their reading comprehension is damn near non-existent lately, and they're not going to do it. They're not going to be able to absorb. They're going to need to have the dictionary handy to look up a whole bunch of words from Gygax's vernacular. Um, so what other games do you play, or have you played extensively besides your typical fantasy,
Uh,
or are you just a fantasy guy?
I run everything. There's only a handful of games that I don't mess around with. But currently, I'm running a Dragonbane game because I'm also writing for it. I have a new setting and a bunch of other odds and ends that I'm writing for it. Like there's 30 different products that I have
Mhm.
planned out for the rest of the year. Small little 2 and 3 page things. So Dragonbane is very is fun. It's imperfect, but it's fun. Other fantasy games I love are like the Dark Eye from Ulysses Spiel. I think Treasure. I
Really,
think I
I've
do.
got a copy.
I've
I've
got
got
a
a
huge.
copy. I've never
I have
read it.
a whole collection, man. I love those books. I love the Dark
Really?
Eye. It's very crunchy, but in a good way. I like Fantasy Hero. I think Fantasy Hero 6e is wonderful. I like Ancient Odysseys from Crazy Intermedia Group, which is just a little tiny booklet like the old Dragon War. I like Dragon Warriors. I love Dragon Warriors. Um, so I'm not a one system kind of guy. I've always been. I love RuneQuest. I love role playing games. Science fiction games I love. I love. I mentioned Hero. I love Hero. I like GURPS. I like GURPS Edition. I think that makes Dungeon Fantasy, which is GURPS Fantasy, wonderful.
I have
I
that. I haven't
love
read it.
I love Eclipse Phase from Posthuman Studios, which is one of the most threatening role playing games I've ever read in my life. Um, but because I'm a trained biologist, and so it's like I was threatened by the transhumanist things, and but it's wonderful, and it's also free online because they publish under the Creative Commons license, so you can go to Rob Boyle's website and download all the PDFs for free. But yeah, I own a lot of different RPGs, and I like the new stuff. I like the old stuff. I like silly games. I like serious, very serious games. There's I don't generally like I've moved away, and I love White Wolf. I love Phil Bricado and all the old crew. And I really love what they did. Like they changed things, and they altered how people saw game development, and they brought women to the hobby, which was great, um, but I've kind of moved away from it because it's just not my groove anymore.
Mhm.
I like Stellar Games Nightlife because you're not all playing a bunch of outcasts amongst outcasts. You're playing a group of supernatural creatures in a world that actively hunts you and despises you. And that's kind of interesting. Um, but it's more fun. It's more 80s splatterpunk. But yeah, I own a lot of different games that, and I
How are
they
you
all
on
offer something different.
sci-fi? or horror or
I
um,
I'm a huge Cthulhu fan, although mostly 20s, 30s. I love pulps. I love Hollow Earth Expedition. Sci-fi. I love Star Ace. I think Star Ace is a great game from
I
the
just bought a
pace setter.
copy of that. I didn't like it. I thought I would. It was highly
I don't
recommended.
like. There's
Sorry, what?
okay. It's like all pace setter games. It's imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my connection is messing up here. Oh, come on.
It looks like you're
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Looks like I
yeah. I'm
corrected.
back.
Hopefully
Yeah,
we didn't
I
lose
didn't
too
like
much.
the setting. The setting was so awful for Star Ace. I just like. I know when this was written. I get it. I can't do this. It's just like.
It was
Um,
it was it was it was imperfect because the idea behind there's not much there. It's like all of the pace setter settings. It's just there's not much there. And so it's like if you look at Time Master, for example, they don't do a very good dive on like the organization behind it. Like who's giving you this equipment, right? But a better game for that is called Time Watch, which is powered by the Gumshoe engine from the amazing guys
hmm,
at Pace Pelgrane Press, and that
okay.
book is this thick, and it has like 30 different time travel types of games to play, and it's
Hmm,
wonderful. And one of them is obviously Time Master, but there's more background and stuff, so it's really good. For time
hmm,
travel, that's the gold standard. But other sci-fi games I love Frontier Space, which is Star Frontiers. That's a
okay.
wonderful retro clone of Star Frontiers. Um, but I own a lot of different. I mean, thinking about just Shatter Zone. I love the Master Book system, although it needs a little cleaning up.
Hmm,
But I love Shatter Zone. I think that's great. Shane Hensley wrote all the fiction, a lot of the fiction that took take place in there. So yeah,
okay.
there's a lot of different games that are on my shelves. I mean, I don't really buy. I don't. I'm lucky. I do a lot of research before I buy a role playing game, so I don't really have many dogs on my shelf. Like I think there's literally like maybe three different role playing games on my shelf that are just crap.
I'm getting ready to make a collaborative video with some of my friends. Top 10 games I have in my collection I will never play, because I have that's just a scratch of some of the awful games in my collection. Um,
Yeah, there's two that immediately come to mind, and if you want to invite me on that one thing, I'll happily talk about them. But one of them is amazingly bad, like in the production sense. Like you thumb through it and go, no, it's bad.
I am
But
highly
anyway,
intrigued.
there's
Um,
a lot of really great games out there.
did you ever play any like superhero genres?
Yeah, I'm a big Champions fan, but I also love Villains Vigilantes. I'm a huge Icons. I prefer Icons. If I was to pick a super, if all my other superhero games were going to burn, I would probably save Icons over Champions. And I went through a lot to get my Champions Sixth Edition collection complete.
That's funny.
But I like Icons.
I my literally my uh, Desert Island game is Villains and Vigilantes, second or 2.5 edition, 47 pages. I can literally run any game with that. And I have. I've run multiple completely weird genres. I've run fantasy, I've run sci fi with it because while its skill system being non existent, I can kind of work that. But what would be your Desert Island game or Bug
Wow.
Out Bag game?
Wow. It's going to blow your mind when I tell you. Um, The Dying Earth from Pelgrane Press, set in the works of Jack Vance.
I just picked up a copy of that. I'm dying to read it, but the seller I got it from on eBay is kind of a jerk, and a lot of the pages
Oh.
were stuck together. So I had to literally tear
Oh.
the pages apart. But I will get another copy of it because I loved the Dying Earth
Well,
world.
talk to me after we're done talking here.
Okay, because
An extra
here,
copy or two may have come into my possession,
okay, check
and
this
I
out.
and I
I didn't read Dying Earth until last year for the first time. The paperback was
wow.
the paperback was in my collection for 40 years. I'll get to it one day. I'll get to it one day. And then I started doing this Appendix N book club, where we review and reviewed most of the books in the book club. Okay. And oh wow, nice, nice. I got to get that because I've got like original 1960s or whatever versions
Oh
that
wow.
I have to read with with gloves and a
In
face
a
mask and stuff.
hyperbaric chamber, you got to protect it. Yeah.
And I didn't and I loved the first one. I loved them all. There's a great audiobook series where I forget the channel name, but I'll try and dig it up. Where the guy who was reading it was amazing, playing all the different characters, especially Kugel, whatever.
Hmm.
It was just great. I loved it. I kicked myself. Like I could have been benefiting from all this information that was so obviously inspirational to Gygax and team back in the day, but I didn't know. I was reading all this other stuff
So
and just missing out on that.
I came to Vance very late in life too. Not that late, but within the last say 20 years, 15
Okay.
years. And much like yourself, I kicked myself for not getting into it earlier. But I was always curious, Vancian magic, Vancian
Mhm,
magic.
mhm,
And it's when you read about how Gygax wrote Vance and got permission, and how the reason why it's can trip as opposed to can trap. Um, and it's interesting to kind of read Rob Kuntz's stuff about that. And but yeah, the world building, and then just the flights of fancy and the willingness to use complex structure to communicate beauty in a very lyrical way. It's very Robert E. Howard and Vance have that in common. It's almost poetic in
mhm,
terms of how
mhm.
they write.
Yeah, it's
And
a
so
word you
when
never hear with Howard, but it's absolutely true. I even like to think, in some ways, Edgar Rice Burroughs was like that as
yeah,
well. He's one of my absolute favorites.
I have all
Um,
the John Carter omnibuses right here too, always within reach in case I need to just detox.
mhm,
But
mhm.
bringing this around to Dungeon Dwellers, we decided not to do the Vancy, even though I love that stuff. I wanted to put some distance between us and Wizards of the Coast, and that's why we did our magic system. It's non-Vancian.
Arduin did the spell points first, as far as I know, and to see other people, you know, go that route, it makes the most
I,
sense.
I'm not sure where Arduin fell in regards to Worlds of Magic, which was the precursor to RuneQuest, but
Okay.
or Tunnels and Trolls. I'm not sure where those three fall, but it's within that family of groundbreaking first ones to
The
do it.
Arduin was like the third to come
Could
out
be,
in the.
yeah.
So I don't know RuneQuest that well or Tunnels and Trolls to say for certain, but for me it was the first experience, and prior to that I was thinking to myself, as a youngster, it's like, wouldn't it be neat if they could take those second level spell slots that they never use, because the list of spells was kind of crap, for some things, and turn those back into like first level spells or something, and lo and behold, a little while later, I found ways to do that through different things, and it just makes more sense. It's an energy. It's not. I look at it like this. I was a musician for a while, and I've been in around musicians all my life, and learning a spell to me seems like learning a song. You either know it or you don't. Once you know it, you can play it all day long, and it's not gonna kill you. You know what I mean? It's gonna bore you to death or whatever. Obviously, magic requires some resource, some energy from inside to get the spell going. There's got to be some difference between the average Joe and a wizard or an illusionist or whatever, so that they can do the thing. Otherwise, you would get a world in the future where everybody can use magic, and magic is everywhere. Literally, from kindergarten on, kids are learning, how to cast light spells and things like that. If it's that simple and that easy, you've got to have that mana, if you will, that resource
Mhm.
to power the spell. Not to go all Harry Potter, but you've got to have
Well,
something.
each world handles magic differently, and
Hmm.
so the way that it worked in because I'm a Vancian, um, so the way that it worked in Vance is you have to, magicians are mathematicians.
Mhm.
That's an important thing. So they're all mathematicians, which makes them great musicians, right? And
Mhm.
so one of the things they have to do is they have to capture a madlet, which is a magical elemental. And you have to basically grab that little bastard and then you have to trap it. And then you shape it with voice and gesture through sheer force of will and mathematics. And that's what becomes the spell. And
Mhm.
that's why they exist as a finite number of slots because you're releasing the madlet. And the more powerful wizards can actually hold on to more madlets.
Mhm.
And most people don't have the math, the brains, um, to grasp the even existence of a madlet.
Mhm.
And so when Gygax borrowed the Vancian magic system, that's where he went. Spell points for us are just like the way you're describing it. Is it's you're open to the ambient magic around you. We will add eventually rules for like ley lines and things like that, and
Mhm.
sources of power, and also arcane materials where you can actually have a powdered gemstone that will make your fire magic better.
Mystical plutonium.
Exactly, exactly. And so eventually that'll all factor in. And we also will have I don't remember if we put them into the Game Master's book, but there will be a mana potion of some sort. You were saying you love higher fantasy. That is high fantasy. If you can
Mhm.
restore your magical points almost as easily as your hit points, that dramatically
There needs
changes
to
how the
be
game
that
works.
mechanic
Right.
for various reasons. One of the ingredients I want to share with you that we went through this phase of cold iron, which was the exact opposite, a magic nullifying metal, just like in Supernatural when they wave the freaking the fire poker around to scare off the ghosts. We had this cold iron that if you could mine it and use it, you could protect yourself from magic. And then people started slipping it into magic users' drinks and food, and suddenly they can't use magic for the rest of the day or however long it takes for them to get rid of it. Um,
That's a great world rule, man. That's awesome.
I don't
That
use
would
it
make
much.
wizards really good at detecting that irony taste, though. You'd think they'd
Yeah.
figure it out, or have a
Well, if,
spell.
if they've experienced it, then they will never forget it. No, the minis are, I believe, 28. They're all basically Reaper minis. Um,
They're
just
32s.
oh,
Heroic scale is now
oh,
32
okay.
mil. Yep.
Oh, okay, okay.
It was the old
Uh,
Partha scale, the old Grenadier scale was 25. Then Heroic moved up to 28 for a while, and now
mhm.
it's like up to 32 mil.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I haven't gotten to the monster section, but I a couple of things I did pick up on is that the dragons are all different. I love that. My players know since day one they're not gonna. A red dragon is not just a red dragon. I use a lot of. What I've done is I've had a lot of in the world I'm running for them now. It's a very it's a very old world with a lot of mixtures, so you may have a red and gold dragon. Don't ask how that happens. But back in the day, I was talking about this. When we were growing up, dragons were green and they breathed fire. Right? All the cartoons, Bugs Bunny, etc. They were, the singing sword. They were green dragons. They breathed fire, and I guess Tolkien, started the ball rolling with Smog being red and breathing fire. But then Gygax, as far as I know, ran with it and codified all the colors and did the thing. Quick rundown. How do you do your dragons? What is it? Uh,
They're not color coded and they're not chromatic versus metallic. They are dangerous from birth. And the size of the dragon has nothing to do with its age per se. Dragons are anomalous. The progenitor of the dragons of our world is Ma'al who is kind of a Tiamat-like figure, but it's more like the Babylonian entity of chaos and destruction. And so all of Ma'al descendants are also tied into the Godworm myth, which is when the gods created the world, they also created these incredibly powerful entities, these Godworms. Ma'al may be one of them. It's kind of nebulous. But when the Godworms screwed up and started doing bad things, including making new varieties what we now know as dragons, it created these thinner and thinner bloodlines of dragon until you got to like hydras, which are relatively stupid. They can't talk, they don't use magic, they're still
Mhm.
powerful, but if you compare them to a true dragon, it's a whole different story. So dragons are not codified. The game master is empowered to build their own dragon. And so they can change their color. They may or may not have a breath weapon. They may or may not be able to fly. They may or may not be able to use magic. The game master picks those qualities and just shuffles them together like a deck of Magic the Gathering cards, and that becomes that unique entity. That dragon is, and the funny thing is the dragons don't have to be like Anacalag in the Black from Tolkien to be incredibly dangerous. A collie-sized dragon is what, or cow-sized even, was like the dragon that Saint George slew.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
That thing wasn't Anacalag in the Black. So it all comes down to what the game master wants the dragon to do. And so, like one of the adventures, Ton of Trouble, features Hissalisic, who is a stunted green dragon, and Hissalisic is terrifying, even though it's
Mhm.
only the size of a big cat, like a lynx.
Mhm.
So the game master has the ability to basically make dragons scary, and not even the good dragons. They're still incredibly dangerous entities that are going to outlive you 100 times. So what do they care about mortals? So we don't have by default dragonborn. Kobolds by default are not mutated dragons, because why would a dragon make offspring that it's going to outlive? That makes no sense. So
Well, not just
they're,
that. I'm old school. I come from kobolds are little dog guys,
yeah,
little rude dogs. You
well,
know.
little reptilian dog guys, but yeah. But if you want them to be dragon born, that's fine. That's your thing. That's cool.
Mhm.
But the thing is that dragons are scary again. They're not predictable and they're horrible. Mechanically they are so broken it's not funny, and they're by that way on purpose. I don't want people going, "Oh, it's a red dragon. We'll just load up with Wall of Ice and Snillock
Exactly.
Snowball, and then oh well, then you'll just have protection from fire. No big deal." Well, I got news for you, Jack. You run into a dragon that's bigger than a house cat, you're probably going to get wrecked.
I fully approve. Did you do the same sort of things with the rest of the monsters? Give options, or is it pretty much?
Every monster has variants. Every monster has different sizes. We that book, even though it's only 84 entries, it's hundreds of monsters. When you add in things like cold variants or variants that are found in different parts of the world, and I give you the tools to modify all the creatures to make them specific to your world. If you want a chimera that has stunted wings but is incredibly sneaky and it lives in the sewers under a city, here's how you do it. And you want an urban chimera. So all of our entries, including like I'm working on the Etten right now, and the Etten has a wealth, tribesman, and an elder stats. And if you go to the variants, it talks about how you have sub chiefs, war party leaders, chieftains, and things like
Mhm.
that. And so you have the tools available to you. You're not stuck with just a monster entry. Like I remember reading the Monster Manual 1 a long million years ago, and there was like one version of a giant snake which had like 8 hit dice. Well, what if I wanted a 4 hit die giant snake? Make it up.
Yeah,
So that's
especially
what I did here.
if you're running like a swords and sandals kind of game. You can't have those giant, you know, uh, the larger version of the snake. It's just going to wreck the party. If you're
Yeah,
keeping
I remember
them.
the purple worm. The purple worm was cool. I love the tremors, right? Having
Mhm.
a giant kind, but not be too big, because it was like 11 hit dice or something.
Mhm.
But so what we did with the purple worm is we just gave it different sizes. Yeah, it's still a big freaking worm. It's like this bigger. It's as big around as a telephone pole, and still scary, but it's more manageable at like level 4 or 5. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
11th level.
because there should be that options. It struck me as like with the old dragons, they had age categories, and it stands to reason that you know maybe monsters, other monsters would have age categories or some sort of
Yeah,
system. I know TSR for 1E and 2E and white box. Everybody in the world was a 2 to 5 hit point person, with very few rare exceptions. That worked for a while, but as time went on, we found um, like Arduin had this thing called the normals, which was the the idea that everybody had levels. Okay, every single person you meet
Mhm.
has the ability to go up level in something. Maybe they're a 17th level baker. The bartender. How many times have you been in a tavern where you get into a bar fight, but the bartender just can't be taken out? No matter what you do, this bartender is just like, Lloyd from The Shining. You can't hurt him.
So what we do in Dungeon Dwellers is because I agree with you, but not but just because you're good at baking doesn't mean you should be fifth level. So what we have is we have different types of NPC classes. An
Mhm.
NPC class, all the classes in the player's guide are for heroes. Those are for adventurers. Adventurers are not a baker. A baker could
Mhm.
live 50 years and only have a level or two because they don't accumulate experience points like adventurers do. And so just your day-to-day operations, they don't need a lot of levels. So the NPCs, we have adepts, which are both, there are priestly adepts, there are divine
Mhm.
adepts, and there's arcane adepts, and those are like the step down from wizards and clerics. They're not, they have a
Like
lot of
the
the same
cloistered
abilities,
cleric,
but
maybe,
they happen, huh?
like the
They
old
are.
cloistered.
They are somewhat like the cloistered cleric. You have to remember that the cleric that people often associate with D&D is basically the warrior cleric, the ones that
Right.
protect a church. They're not the laymen. They're not the lay clerics. And so the adept is a step down. They don't get the heavy armor. They don't
Hmm.
have the heavier weapons. And so they could over time acquire those things like anybody else can. Um, but say they have fewer hit points. They have their attacks aren't as good. They're just a step down. Now, if you want if you run into like a first level cleric versus a first level divine adept, they're pretty different.
Hmm.
Um, Especially at like level 3 or 4, you start looking at the differences, and there's a lot. But they do represent the cloistered cleric as you talked about.
Hmm.
Whereas we also have warriors, which are a step down from fighters. We have experts, which are not necessarily rogues, but you can build rogues off of them. But they're not. But they're not assassins because rogues are basically assassins and thieves.
Hmm.
And then we also have thugs, and thugs are like the mid-range. They're sneakier fighters or more fightery sneaks. And we also have aristocrats, and aristocrats are the cool thing about aristocrats is they can like borrow abilities from other classes because it's called the golden rule. They can be like, well, I want to have the fighter's attack bonus. Boom, they now have the fighter's attack bonus, and so they can get you can basically build NPCs, but they're going to be a step down in terms of everything they do. But yeah, the world is full of NPCs that have levels. But like if you run into the average bartender, he might only be first or second level. But they can also there's multi-classing options in the game master's book too. But I don't make it easy. I don't want
I,
that to be the norm.
I'm a big fan of multi-classing, but in lieu of that, I notice with your skill system, let's say, you've made it so that people can learn things that they wouldn't normally be able to learn in other games. And I don't know about you, but I've had more than a dozen different careers. I'm almost 60. I've done a lot of different things, and I haven't forgotten how to do most of those things. Some of them I absolutely have because it's been 50 years. But if I need to open a lock, cool. If I need to do some other things, I can do them. It's just a matter of literally each person is unique and should have uh, some way to show that
Mhm. So what we
instead
do
of
in Dungeon Dwellers is there's no skill list, and that's an important thing to say because we played. You ran AD&D the other night. You don't have a skill list. You don't, other than
I use
Ranger's tracking,
I use the
and
proficiencies from Wilderness and Dungeoneering
which were
Survival Guide.
not part of the original game for like 10 or 15 years.
I know, right?
So, and it was purely optional. It's purely optional.
Mhm.
So the thing is that proficiencies are like you gain 4 levels and now you get this one thing. But you can't. Can I ride if I don't have what proficiency ride? So what I did is I looked at that and I said, well, here's the problem. Skill lists are exclusionary. Sorry, you don't have it. Don't bother. Um, and it's that's one thing. Two, it's artificially restrictive. If a
Mhm.
player wants to learn bottle like glass blowing, is that going to wreck your game? No. But in 3X, you have to spend precious skill points to get
Mhm.
things that don't matter.
Mhm.
Whereas,
Same with
you
the
know,
proficiency system.
perception matters,
Mhm.
stealth matters, survival matters, knowledge skills matter, and yet because they all cost the same, depending upon which 3X or 3.5, and Pathfinder does it completely differently, you're artificially restricted. And so you can't build interesting, cool characters. Because I come from like a RuneQuest background where I have control over all my skills. So I said, well, but that's not the direction to go either. Slots don't work, points don't work. Well, what did work? And I think about our D&D games, our original AD&D and basic D&D games. And what did we do? Somebody said, well, my character's a hunter. You should be able to track. You should be able to identify track. You should be able to stealth through forest, whatever.
Mhm.
That all seemed reasonable. That's tied to that character. Another character who's a fighter comes from a completely different environment, may not have those things. So what we did was we said, look, you basically establish your background, your class, your race, which we call folk, which you identified. And you said
Mhm.
that kind of ground your gears a little bit. I'm like, well, there's reasons why we use that. To me,
Mhm.
race sounds like science fiction. Folk makes more sense. But, anyways, that's a personal
I say
choice.
howdy, folks, every day, but
I know. And I was like, well, it's a good word to use. So, anyways, all of those things plus the player choice
mhm.
determines what your character knows well. It determines, to some extent, what your character is familiar with, and and everything else you're non-proficient with. So anything that you build into your character that is non-attacks, non-saving throws, all the classic skills, talent, knack type stuff is proficiencies. And so instead of keeping a list, it's organically kept on your character sheet and also in your brain and as part of the group. If
Mhm.
somebody spontaneously says, well, I am an expert in alchemy, and somebody at the table goes, bull crap, well, you're just trying to game the system. And then everyone weighs in on it, and that player gets voted down. You're trying to add crap to your character, just trying to win. So the system is presented to be very player friendly, game master friendly, but you work together on a case by case basis to determine what part of your level you get to add as a bonus. Full level, half your level, or your level divided by four. In all cases, drop the fraction. It's, in my opinion, very elegant. And I am compelled to say this. I was inspired by the Periton OSR role playing game. Used had lists, but the lists were abstracted and kind of broad. So I took what they had an idea of and used slightly different numbers. They used they used one per one every three, and then zero. Um, so, anyways, so we don't have a skill list, but it frees the players to go, I know glass blowing and cobbling. Is that going to hurt the game? No.
but, but but it opens up uh, role playing,
Yep.
actual role playing, which I'm a huge fan of, and struggle with a lot of players. But I'll get into why that's the case later. I want to see more of it, and I'd like to see mechanics or rules, or if you will, that promote that and reward that. Because if you don't reward the thing, they won't do the thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now, I'll go back to the role playing thing in a minute, but because we were talking about character design, the background rules. First off, they're very similar to something I read somewhere else. So I'm wondering, how you came
You
about
thought
it.
about where you, because I got the idea a million years ago when I was just like coming up as a game master, but it was codified in a role playing game called High Adventure Roleplay, which is a splinter off of Rollmaster.
Okay,
And what
so
and
the other
Rollmaster does
system that I
something.
saw it from could easily have found the same inspiration. Not saying that anybody took anything,
No, no, no,
untoward,
definitely not. No.
but was inspired because it was like, man, this because I haven't read any of the things you just mentioned, but I read this other thing, and I'm like, That's very, very similar because it matters. The old
Mhm.
Soch table in AD&D, what kind of background you come from matters and should absolutely impact the game. If you're running, like the old Cavalier, let's say, you got money. You're not
Yep.
stressing over copper. You know what I mean? You probably haven't seen a copper in a year because you just silver, or gold or whatever. Money matters. Money is a huge thing. Sure, it's a driving factor
Well,
for a lot of characters, but not everybody. The rich
well,
guys,
one of
they're
the
more worried
things
about other things.
one of the things you mentioned in your encapsulation review was, well, why doesn't everyone play an aristocrat? And I said, okay, because you don't get extra money as being an aristocrat. Your class determines how much money you start with.
Mhm.
And but the thing is not all aristocrats. There are plenty of petty aristocrats that were flat broke. And
Mhm.
in fact, most of them were. In fact, there
History's
was a
full of them.
category, the landless noble. And those are the guys that have nothing and they're reliant upon becoming professional soldiers because that was the only way for them to sustain themselves.
Mhm.
Um, and that's very chivalry and sorcery. I love chivalry and sorcery too. The guys at Britannia Games are awesome.
Mhm.
Steven's wonderful. And stay tuned because I'm working with them to develop expand their basic rule book. Um, but the thing is that your background determines three things. It determines your character's your upbringing, but also your social class, and also your character's trade. And they are mutual. They are all separate entities. You could have a weird mix, and that's fine because that happens. You could have a nobleman's son who's just completely feckless, who ends up basically sweeping up broken glass in alchemist's lab because the noble son is useless, right? But you could also have a person, a dirt poor pig farmer, who, because of whatever traits the player picks, could be a gifted scholar and become one of the most revered scholars in the lands. But
Mhm.
that's all going to play a factor in proficiency use. And then the trade, lastly, is a massive list of all kinds of professions you could have. And those
Mhm.
three things combined with the lens of your class and race determines whether or not something is proficient. And there's a whole breakdown under character creation. And my boss forced me to write like a 2-page article basically in here about guiding players through the thought process of, well, what is my character going to be good at? And you can create a list
The,
if you want to, but it's
the
not like you're
checklist, if
spending
you will.
points. Yeah, basically.
And when you think about it, adding those extra layers make give you a larger number of possible characters you could like if you were going to randomly make a computer program to randomly roll up characters, adding those extra steps like the Fermi paradox. Each one exponentially creates more
Yep.
possibilities, and that's being an old time player who's played 100 different fighters. It gets harder and harder to come up with a new fighter, you know, uh, with your basic race, stats, profession. In games that just ignore all the things we just talked about, like on purpose, because somehow they'll give you an advantage, and the designers believe that advantage will skew the game in favor of the advantage, not understanding that good players will create characters, uh, bad players will create character sheets.
I always liked like when I first started messing around with this 4 years ago, the initial design, because we were looking at a lot of skill systems and stuff, and we had these pillars that I was creating as I worked on stuff. And one of the things was I really wanted to go no skills, and I just wanted to do this idea. But I've had some of the most entertaining at ReaperCon conversations with players where I go, well, my question to you is, do you see yourself as being a fill in the blank, say a mariner? The character goes, I hadn't thought about it, but that would be kind of cool. I said, well, this is your opportunity to tell me right now. My character grew up on a barge, so I get to add my level to this role to determine whether or not we go over the falls or not. And the player and I have that dialogue in front of everyone else, and everyone goes, yeah. And now it's all part of the zeitgeist. It's all part of our group think. We all believe you. And the player has stated very clearly, I'm a mariner. This is what I do. And then that player grabs the pole and goes, I got this. And then digs in. And then we see the excitement happen at the
For,
table.
for the longest
That's what
time,
I
the
like.
best we had was the secondary skill list in the DMG. That a lot of DMGs is like, well, I'm not using that. Like, why? Well, because it gives you too much, ambiguous abilities that there's no rules for. If you're, a teamster, well, there's a whole lot of things that go into becoming a teamster.
We just let you pick. To be honest with you, and this is going to interfere with your old school. Maybe we're going to get into a fist fight over this at some point. But I hate random. I don't like
No,
random character creation.
I'm
Traveler,
right there with
Traveler
you.
broke me.
Actually, uh,
Traveler, Mega Traveler
random
broke
is
me. Ugh, ugh.
random is, in my opinion, lazy,
Yep.
uninspired, unimaginative, and letting the rules run the game for you.
I don't mind the
You're supposed to
system
be
being random.
the
I
guy.
just don't
You know
like
what I mean?
players going and then not caring. I'm like, no, care. It's important. It's like now
Well, not
I
only
have
that,
realistic.
what do you want to run? Tell me what you
Yeah,
want to run. We can work with it. I'd rather you run what you want than roll straight down the line and go, I hate this character. I run into combat hoping to
and
die.
die. In Mega
So I
Traveler,
can roll up something better. That
that
ruins
used
the
to
game
happen
for
all the
everybody else.
time. Well, what are you doing? Like, why are you waiting? Now, some people like Mega Traveler for that, and I appreciate that. I really do. It's old school to go through the process.
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of free time, and I don't want to have to make 12 characters to get one okay character when somebody else gets lucky and is a retired rear admiral with a fusion gun and a starship and powered armor, and my guy starts off with a spear and washed out of his first 2 years of trying to become of being after being conscripted into the military. That's actually what happened in our Mega Traveler game. And I was like, this is stupid. I literally got up and left the game. I'm like, I'm not going to walk out an airlock and waste time. How do you generate an encounter that's challenging for the guy in the powered armor with a fusion gun and a guy with a spear? Like, how do you? But I mean, but if that's your gig, okay. But
Well,
let's
yeah,
just
if
cut
you're
to the
running like a
chase and create
Doctor
cool
Who
characters.
game, if you're running a Doctor Who game, that works. But if you're running a lot of other games, it does not. And
It,
to
it,
this date,
it
I've never seen a Doctor Who game that was worth the paper it was printed on.
I own several. I actually own Time Watch because Time Watch gives you the Doctor Who option. I mean, they in so many words tell you it's Doctor Who. But I also
I've got the
own
small Time Lord, and then
Time
I've got the
Lord.
original. I've
Me
got the
too.
original white covers, and
I, I, I
exactly,
have I have the Tom Baker Fossa. I have one. I think the second printing of
that's
it,
the one.
and I don't own physical versions of Time Lord. Now, in my opinion, those are good games, but they don't handle time travel very well. The third time travel game that I really like is called Continuum, and that was from the same guy who did the Yamara comics in the old Dragon magazines, Chris Adams, and that's a great game. It's just kind of it's not super exciting presented, but anyways, it's those types of characters work depending upon how the system supports them. Traveler, there's too much on the skill system. You have to have a competent character to go. Incompetent characters don't go into space. Sorry, it's true. They don't. And so you have to be able to bring something to the game. It's like Rifts games. Everybody has to have some function with the game. Otherwise, everyone's just waiting for the glitter boy to open up. And
Mhm.
sorry, the
The
game
new
doesn't work if I
Mongoose
don't get to have
version,
fun.
the new Mongoose did kind of address that by giving the party a skill package,
Yeah,
to where they could go, okay, well, Joe over here needs a little help, so we're going to give him a couple of the skills off the skill package, and then we'll, work the rest out. But um, that's a completely different kettle of fish. Traveler is like a whole world unto itself
yeah.
with the good and the bad, and it doesn't really
I
translate to
I love Mega Traveler. I love it. I love it. But I scrap the character creation system. For me, for something to scratch my Traveler itch, Ashen Stars from Pelgrane Press. I love Ashen Stars. Great game.
right, right, off grid, and Cal are in my Sunday game. There's
Okay.
two other players. One's in Ireland, so he won't pop in, and Omenal, who knows where he is, but he's the other guy. Um,
Welcome, guys. Thanks for turning in. I really appreciate it.
yeah, me too, me too. They're here with me like every day and stuff, at least for a little while. Same with Squirrel and Dean Powell and Daryl and some other folks. Uh, what do you do to uh, okay, maybe before I ask that, right now I only play online. I'm guessing you have the opportunity to play in person most of the time.
I go to I attend two conventions consistently. I'm hoping it's a lot more in the future. I go to ReaperCon, and the month or so before that is North Texas RPG Con. Both of them are in the Texas area. Um, and but I do Dragon Bane face to face. I belong to a slow growing game club at the local game store in the mall, and we're trying to grow a more significant community. Unfortunately, we've lost a few people. Um, but so I play when I prefer face to face. I also like will run games at the Cozy Cat Cafe for the neurodivergent because neurodivergents are more comfortable playing with other neurodivergents and with a game master that understands them and moves at a
Okay.
different pace. But yeah, I mean, I will run if you will host. I will run. But I also my high school homeboys. They're all over Michigan, so I run online for them.
That's
And
got to
I
be nice.
think
All my
and and on
go ahead.
Gygax Day, I'm definitely gonna be. I'm gonna be. I think I'm gonna run that Monday night. I'm gonna have to run. I'm thinking I'm gonna run Legendary Adventure, which was Gygax's last real role playing game that he wrote for Hika Forge. So I might do
All
that Monday
all
night.
my original high school and college guys, they've all passed away, with one
Oh, I'm
exception.
sorry.
But I tried contacting him last week, no answer. So who knows? He's got 7 kids. Um,
Oh wow,
so,
yeah.
so who knows?
I have a pretty good sized pool of people in my like much like yourself. I have a lot of people in my orbit. And if I set up a flare and say I'm running Legendary Adventure Monday night, I will have players and we'll play on Discord. I have a 4 or 5 camera setup, and I play on a Mega Mat. So we push I push the miniatures around for you. You
Okay,
just
see, I'm
tell me
trying
to
to get
go.
to that point
Yeah,
right now. I only play online, and I don't do the miniature thing yet. I'm trying to get to that, but it's not as easy. It's not the money. It's just learning the tech and finding a place
yeah.
that I can do it.
I,
My
I will
table
happily
here,
tell you what I do.
off camera, I would love to
Yep,
hear that
yep.
because I've got this much space for my elbows because I have got miniatures all over here, and not gonna lie, most of them are Reaper, but I do have a lot of other stuff and whatnot. Um, I have been struggling for the past 4 years or so. I had never played online, and learning to play online is vastly different than playing in
Mhm.
person. We've got a shorter time frame, we've got shorter attention spans, uh, and a lot of issues. So it's literally become it's like the rules have to change for that. You cannot try to play rules as written for any game I've come across because you're playing online. You don't have the time, you don't have the resources, and the players' expectations are vastly different.
Yeah,
It's unfortunate because I've tried. Like when I recruit, it's like, hey, I want more role playing. I want I'll even say heavy role playing, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally yeah, and then that's not what they bring to the table. You know.
it
Um,
takes time to like. I liken a lot of what game masters do to like working on a lathe. You know, you
mhm,
start out with a big lumpy log, and it takes time and
mhm,
force. It takes pressure and to spin the log and then to get the shapes that you want. And it just takes time. And the thing is that online, the rhythm of it is completely different. And so yeah, getting players to commit to like the structure is really important. My high school homeboys crave time away from families and their adult responsibilities.
mhm.
So when we get together, they come to play hard, and so a lot of role play. And I constantly adjust the content based upon what they desire. You know, and
Mhm.
if they don't want to talk to somebody, then we wrap it up quickly and we move on to the thing that they do
Mhm.
desire. And but
The,
just
the the the
it
four
just
guys
takes
that are in my Sunday game uh, are exactly like that. Like you said, like the lathe. I started out with a group of like 9 or 12, and we're down to four after what is it, 3 or 4 years now. People have
yeah
moved on or done other things or whatever. Some people just didn't work or their schedule didn't work or whatever, down to 4 regular guys. It's great, but when it comes to bringing up new games, and starting new games, because I'm trying to uh, start some new games, and it's getting harder, especially when you realize you're going to get about 2 or 3 hours. It's not like
Yeah,
the old days. Trying to run a
all weekend long.
I know, man. I used to literally play every day for decades, Monday
Sure.
through Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Every day, Monday through Friday, it would be like 6 hours. Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 12, depending on.
Yeah.
And this was even through college and careers. We just played. That's all we did. You
Well,
know.
we had a game night when we were in college, and it was very consistent. We played a lot of Werewolf and things like that. A
Mhm.
lot of AD&D Second Ed back in the day. Um, and but the thing we found is that you have to make it a priority. Like you
Mhm.
have to, is the juice worth the squeeze? And so as you get older, your priorities have shifted, and you may think very fondly of those times at the table, but finding that 2 to 3 hour window once a month or once a week or whatever it is gets harder. And so we become less flexible as we get older. And so when we were kids, we were like, we could just drop everything and go to Jeff's house and go to the basement and be there all night.
Mhm.
You can't do that anymore. It's more involved.
Family responsibilities, all
Yep.
those big 4 letter words come into play, and you don't get to play. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think about uh, the competition that being uh, this crap?
Okay, so I come from AAA game development. So I tested video games for
Mhm.
AAA titles for 10 years. And I was pretty good at it. I could wreck a game fast. I have my little retro handheld. This is the Battle XP from LitNext. I like games. I like a lot of different kinds of games. But my nephews have a very different perspective and relationship to their games than I do. I can
Mhm.
pick this up and play Joust for half an hour. It's no big deal. They can turn on Minecraft and they're useless for the rest of the day. They woke up thinking about it, they played it until their parents turned it off, and then they think about it nonstop until Sunday morning when they get to do it again. It becomes a babysitter. But that's not video games' fault. Anything can be like that, right?
No, absolutely.
Anything. So the bottom line is that I'm trying to get my nephews to embrace a lot of different kinds of games. But it's hard when the parents both have purchased PS5s. So when they go to one parent, he turns it on and they leave him alone. And the other parent has to negotiate with the kids so much time to play with a controller, and then who gets to play because there's only so many controllers and there's like 5 kids, only 4 of which actually can play games. It's a whole thing.
Mhm.
I'm not threatened by it, but I am threatened by, and I don't mean anything bad by this, World of Warcraft mentality. That's a different thing. Getting people to think about games in terms of it being a fun outlet for us instead of an outlet for them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So us, not you. And so getting people to understand how role playing games work in terms of us, us having fun together, us enjoying each other's company, us working together for certain goals, as opposed to you trying to murder another player character to get their crap because you want to play an evil character. You think that that's fun and exciting to lure monsters back to the group and then rob them while their backs are turned. That you can get away with that crap in World of Warcraft and other games, but you can't necessarily bring that really psychopathic behavior to the table. Like we all learned, we are Gen X. We were
Yeah.
raised in sandboxes. We understand the sandbox
Mhm.
detente, whereas people who played exclusively online have a very different perspective of relationships. And so when I have a player, this happened a couple of ReaperCons ago, go, well, how do you feel about an evil character? Because I was letting people bring their characters from home and stuff. And I was like, the third level, street legal, get it approved by me, and it's okay. And this guy, well, how do you feel about evil characters? I said, well, how do you feel about evil characters? He kind of looks at me a little side eyed and goes, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you want to do in this game? Well, I want to, sneak around and maybe pick a couple pockets and, you know, um, maybe help the game master in his plots. And I went, Absolutely not. It's not your job to collaborate with me to screw the other players. That's not what we're doing here. I've seen too
Mhm.
many games explode because of that. So absolutely not.
And especially at
You're gonna
our
have
age.
enough to do
Um,
to try to introduce your own plots into my game. It's like we have 4 hours.
yeah, and at our age, if there's a fist fight, someone's going to jail. If not both of the people. I got my big start at a place called Bob's Comics in Orange County, California, over on Brookhurst and Hazard, and I saw a lot of fights. I was a paid DM from the time I was 14 to about 17 or 18, and I saw a lot of literal fights. Back then, take it outside, blah blah blah. Now there's zero tolerance, and both of you are going to jail,
Yep,
and you can guarantee your bag of stuff is gone. You know what I mean?
yep.
Your backpack, your minis, your dice, everything that's gone. Just you'll never see it again. And if you do, it won't be in this shop. You know what I
Even
mean?
if no one gets hurt, even if the cops don't get involved, even if there's no like people taking your stuff, it's still an ugly scene. It looks bad. I have I have four autistics at my table, and they're from pretty minor to pretty badly affected, emotionally disturbed. And I am so protective of them when anyone comes into that group, and I make it very clear that I can play with other people, or I cannot, and it all comes down to awareness and expectations. And so we're friends. I don't hang out with people that I'm not friendly with. If I don't want you
Mhm.
over at my house, barbecue, interacting with my pets, walking around my pond, I probably don't want to game with you. Now, when I'm
Mhm.
at a convention, I don't have a choice. You signed up, you showed up, we're going to have a good time. But I'm going to protect the bulk of the players from the worst abusers. And I
Mhm.
have done some pretty nasty things at conventions to sort people out. One convention many years ago, I was running Hollow Earth Expedition wearing the Exile Game Studios colors. Hollow Earth Expedition is one of my favorite games of all time. I love the adventure pulp genre, Indiana Jones, Mummy, etc. I
Me
love it.
too. Me too.
And so when I had one guy, or rather three guys that brought their own table dynamic, and it was just me trying to protect the rest of the group from these three a holes. And I
Mhm.
ran Pinnacle Entertainment Group. I one time I bought a guy's ticket. We were running an aliens type scenario and stopped using Savage Worlds. And the guy decided that, well, I need to be somewhere in 45 minutes and I'm not having a really good time. So I'm going to go up to the most volatile part of the ship and pull out my fusion grenade and I'm going to blow up the ship and that'll kill the monster and us. And I'll just end the scenario for everybody. And so I was shocked. And so I asked the other players if they were okay with that. And they were like, absolutely not. And the guy got really upset with me. And so what I did is I reached into my pocket and I took $2.50 out and I put it on the table and I slid over and I already had his ticket because I collect them as part of, you signed up. So I take your ticket. And so I was like, I just bought your ticket. Go the hell away. So 45 minutes early, the guy walked. I bought his ticket and I basically excused him from the game and he just was completely inflexible and wouldn't budge. But yeah, but you know what? That's only like the 1 in 10,000 thing. It's like the
Yeah,
majority of people are
exactly, exactly.
nice
I mean, it's
and
gonna
cool
happen.
and
You're gonna
wonderful and awesome. Yeah, but I'll never
you've got
forget the guy's face. I could probably see him today and be like, "You."
yeah. We've I think each and every one of us is in our own way trying to keep this hobby alive because, like I
Yeah,
said earlier, this is getting in the way. And I don't know about you, but my show's called Shadow and Sun, and my son actually created the channel. It was his idea when he was 11, which is amazing. He's an amazing lad. He actually is as far as we know, he's the youngest professional game contributors, as in he's been paid for his contribution, and not by me, but by other professionals for his work he's done as a graphic designer in vexiology because they could not find a professional vexiologist who would work in a fantasy situation because didn't want that on their permanent record, as it were, their resume, that they did fantasy work, because that's frowned upon in that particular community. Um, the the closing down of Toys R Us, I think, was the beginning. Uh, there are so many kids that don't even know how to play with a toy. They've never actually had the tactile sensation of playing with Hot Wheels or Legos or these other things, because now most of them have become uh, unaffordable by the average, family. Starting out, they can't they can't buy those things. They can't afford it. When they go to Walmart, 12, $20 for an action figure, it's not happening. $5, or whatever for a Hot Wheel, that's not happening. But getting them a cell phone or a tablet, you know for Christmas, and they're good for the rest of you know
There's a lot of bang for your buck in a tablet or even a Leapster.
yeah.
But the new Toy Story movie, Toy Story 4, deals with this very thing, and
I
they
haven't seen it.
and they make the Leapster villainous. They make it very clear that this thing is villainous, and I think that's very interesting. Me personally, I think anything in moderation is fine. Spicy
Mhm.
food is fine. It's great. I do not want to put it on my breakfast cereal. But that's on the parents to kind of moderate. And
Mhm.
but yeah, you can see it sometimes with some gamers. They come to the table and they're like, "I'm here to win and make everybody miserable, including the game master,"
Mhm.
and I don't put up with
Mhm.
it. We actually
No,
just kicked a guy
and
out.
they can literally uh, get people to quit the hobby,
Yep,
which would then be to their own detriment, because they would have no one to play with except online as a troll, or what have you. Even to the point, like with miniatures. Uh, so many people that I've come in contact with, they've never been in the same room as miniatures and terrain and all that stuff, and they see it, and it's like they're completely, their mind is blown, because
it's
they
neat when
never
something
had.
changes. It's neat when that moment happens when they go,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's cool." You see their first BattleTech board because I recently got a store actually had a physical copy of the BattleTech RPG. Um,
Oh, okay.
but there was a table and they had terrain and miniatures and it was so cool. And I'm like, you don't see that much these days. It was
Mm.
just cool.
No, and I think it's going to be a very bad thing, for the future, because if you don't know how to manipulate things with your hands, well, then you probably aren't very good at changing the tire,
No,
or chopping fruits and veggies, or a lot of things that we all learned, not just Gen X, but people that came after us, slowly but surely. In the future, humanity's not going to have fingers; they're just going to have like an index finger. These three fingers will become a flipper, because they just don't use them anymore. It
it's
really
very
bothers me.
interesting because the fact of the matter is that we are as a people we're producers,
Mhm.
but everything is turning us into consumers instead. If we don't get to own our media, we'll just consume it at the rate that we're
Right.
driven at
What do
it,
you what do you
right?
think about that whole thing recently? That just blows my. I mean, I saw it coming.
Which thing are
You know,
we talking about? There's a couple
uh,
of things that all kind of
the
collaborate.
was it Sony, and the other game companies and digital media companies going delete, just like we told you we were going to do. Um,
Man, it didn't come as a surprise at all because we've been slowly moving in the direction of a subscription service-based
mhm.
society for a long time. If you can take away somebody's ability to own something and then sell it back to them, that is something else. That is something. That's I mean
to,
they
to,
talk about
to
techno
yeah.
feudalism. It's really
Well,
scary. Yeah.
another, the oldest profession comes to mind as well. Um, you know,
I have no I'll say it. I have no problem with sex workers. I've never employed one, but the fact of the matter is they should be licensed and just like every other provider. I don't
if you're
care.
making money, you got to pay taxes. It's that simple.
Exactly. So I'm like, you know what? Make it legal. But again, that's not shared by Reaper Miniatures. This is the sole perspective of me, not them. But the thing is, though, is that ultimately, I think that we should be allowed to own things,
Yeah.
and so I think that you shouldn't be able to destroy a community just to make money. Um, I don't think that's right. I'm not a big fan of
I'm a
Walmart.
physical media
Um,
guy. Physical
yeah,
media is king. I just bought the Billy Jack DVD box set. Nobody
Billy
cares.
Jack, nice, cool.
Just because I want to see, because growing up as a kid, I was like, not even a teenager watching those movies till they
Yep.
disappeared. And my perspective and my understanding back then was vastly different than it is
Oh
now.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
want to look at it and go, great respect for the husband and wife team that made the movies and what they did for the
Watch
indie.
watch the A Boy and His Dog as an adult. You know.
I did. As a matter of fact, for the very first time, I watched it
um,
last year, and I'm like,
yeah,
wow, this is not what I was expecting. But I
I
actually read the
yeah.
Harlan Ellison book when I was a teenager. I
Oh
still have it, but I
yeah,
didn't remember it. And then watching the movie, I'm like, okay, this is
yeah.
weird. But I
Logan's
also
Run
grew up.
and Planet of the Apes is the same way. It's like what? You know?
People in the audience, uh, okay, they know Planet of the Apes, Son of Green, Saddle Running, Logan's Run, Rollerball. Those are the movies I grew
Rollerball.
up. I grew
Yeah.
up on those movies regularly. I have them all on DVD because looking for them, you would think that those movies would be like free on Amazon,
A
but I
lot of them
found
are
out
on. A lot of them are on Tubi.
everybody keeps telling me about Tubi, but I don't watch TV to begin with, so it's not really a big deal. If I
I
watch
don't have
something,
that much time either. Yeah.
I,
But
I,
when I watch Logan's Run and Rollerball, it's always on Tubi.
I bought the DVDs because I want to make sure no matter
Yeah.
what happens, I can watch them at my leisure unless they change
For
the outlets or something,
for for the
right?
outlet for as long as the DVD lasts and as long as the hardware supports it.
Mhm.
Because both of those are going to break eventually. And I'm telling you right now, man, it was a struggle. It was a struggle to
Oh yeah,
find
the Foreman Project.
a reasonably priced, good functioning multi-disc type reader, writer, and player.
Yeah,
It
they
took
didn't
some
want us to have.
effort.
That was the start when I was looking at laptops and they no longer had that. I'm like,
Mhm.
huh? This makes no
You don't
sense.
need it. That's what flash drives are for. Hold on. What if? What about the media? Like, how do I? Oh, well, we're not going to give you the codecs to rip it onto, so you're going to have to go to a pirate site to find the codecs to let you.
Foreman Project's
It's
another great one we watched for the first time.
yeah.
Our old friend Shauner talked about it forever and ever, and I finally got it. I'm actually getting a Colossus Project T-shirt because I know nobody will recognize it, and I'll be walking around and just be the only one with the inside joke.
I would love. Here's what I want. I want a black. I want a black long sleeve shirt with the two gray bands like Sandman used to have in Logan's Run. I would love that shirt. I would. I wish somebody made one. Um,
And
I
if
keep
you look
talking about.
around, you could probably find because I've got my Battlestar Galactica jacket right here.
Oh yeah, nice Colonial Viper pilot jacket. Very nice.
Uh, India, India's got it all.
Oh
If
sure, yeah,
you want one that'll fit you, go looking around and you'll find.
yeah.
I've seen it all. Um, if you're
So
looking for not just cosplay but
so
other stuff like that.
here's a question I want to throw out to your community. So my question to you is, all of you, first of all, thank you again for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Yeah, we
Absolutely.
have we have a Discord. We have a forums. The forum is not as busy or active as I'd like it to be, but the Discord, hey, I'll take what I can get. If you want to ask me questions here, that's perfectly fine. I'll happily answer those questions. You can literally ask me anything you want. I will happily talk about the world. I'll talk about the setting. I'll talk about mechanics. Some of you had some questions. What's the point? And I answered that one. You had some questions about this, that, and the other thing, so I've answered those. But
Mhm.
I'm available to you. One of the things I don't like is the ivory tower designer. I want to talk to you because this isn't my game anymore. The minute we released it, it's now your game too. And so I want to hear from you, and I want to talk to you about stuff. And so if you have questions about Dreadmere or the Free City of Farkeep or doesn't matter, anything about the world. Are there robots? Where's the Dragonborn? You can ask me any of those questions. I'll happily answer them. I'm here for you.
Well, back in the day, It was all done by self-addressed stamped envelope. And
Yeah.
now we can like if I email you or send you a message and I don't hear back from you in 24 hours, something's wrong. You're in the hospital
Yeah.
or
Yep.
something like that. You know what I mean? There's no excuse. And those of you who try to play that off like there is, I want to see some receipts because
Well, at the very least,
we
you should write back and say, thanks for the letter. I'll get to this as soon as I can.
and you can't get better feedback, inspiration, and back and forth than
Yeah.
like we are now. You could not saying that but something from this conversation can spark something that could put pages into a book.
Yeah. Well,
And you might not
even if it's
otherwise
just to
get
confirm what I already know,
the
you
ivory
know?
tower mentality, and it's still out
Yeah.
there. There's a lot of
Oh,
people that
yeah.
are like, I don't care. I don't want your suggestions. I know what I'm doing. Blah 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 blah. Blah. Yeah,
Well,
well, your game's gonna suck.
you always have to
You're gonna
run.
make
You always
12
have to
editions.
run your game through a filter. Like when you mine for stuff, you have these different types of clarifiers that clarify, quarter inch, half an inch, whatever. And I always kind of sort of consider people's opinions that way. And so I always run everything through a clarifier. And the thing is that our conversation, because I had a lot of fights with my boss about certain things, and including the proficiency system, and I fought hard for it because I knew I was right. But he was uncertain about it because there were some people that were just like, skill points are the way to go. And so what I tell people is this: bolt one on. Make the changes to the game that you feel are necessary. And if you want to steal the initiative system from 5e, do it. It hurts nothing. You're
Mhm.
literally
Like
taking what
like
I'm
you're
giving you and
the
making it
game
your own.
police are going to come to your door and go, "You're not playing it properly,"
Yeah,
or at
exactly.
the
I'm not here
shop.
to do that.
It's the idea, one of the greatest things and greatest moments, learning moments for me. I was playing this game I ran called Milford's Castle. Total party kill at the shop. I killed everybody, or they killed themselves. However you want to look at it, they all died, and they were pissed. I mean, there were all kinds of, except these two guys who I went to school with, and the guy Randy. He comes up to me and he says, "Hey, check this out." And he opens up my DMG to the afterword. He shows me that, and I'm like, "Thanks, man." And from that moment on, it's like, "Screw you guys. I'm running it my way. You don't like it, you know, here, you want to run this game because I'll be happy to be a player in your game as well."
Yeah.
Um, you, you
It,
know,
we're all
every
here for the
game
same
is different.
reasons.
Exactly, every game is different. There will never be two games that are identical,
No.
even run by the same person with the same group. It can't happen. It's like stepping in the
Frank
same water.
frankly,
You
I don't
can't.
want to play another. I don't want to play in my game. I want to play in your game. I want
Mhm.
to see what changes you make. I want to see. To me, that's really interesting. That shows the dynamism of it. Gygax was famously credited with saying two completely different things, and that is like the rules are inviolable, don't touch them, and it's your game, do what you want. And he said both in different parts of his life, and he's
Cocaine's a
right in both
powerful drug.
regards. It sure is. But I keep saying this for all of the stuff with Dungeon Dwellers. It's your game. It's your rules. And I say
and,
that in
and,
the
and
Game Master's book. Make the
it's
changes
got a
you
lot
feel are
to offer.
necessary.
Excuse me. It's got a lot to offer a lot of people. Maybe even this guy at some point. I want to read it and learn it and know more about it. Um, because you did so many things that other people don't do. It's got to be this way. You're like, well, it can be different ways. Let's show them some tried and true. I'm hoping tested, heavily play tested uh, examples of how you can do this system or this mechanic or this thing. Instead of it just this is the way. The
Yeah.
the 27th commandment according to whatever. Um, what was your play test like?
Extensive. I had two different game groups that were played on Discord, playing on opposite weeks, Saturdays or Sundays. Um, but it was released early to everybody as PDFs that were backers and stuff. But we didn't get. It's interesting. We didn't get a lot of feedback. Typos and stuff. We got a fair amount of that, but
Mhm.
we didn't get a lot of. Are you sure you're going to do that with spell points? Are you sure you want to? It was interesting. People just kind of went, cool. And that's kind of where the conversation would stop. People like yourself, you said you liked it, and I'm like, that's wonderful. And but we didn't get any real pushback. One of you, you, I get to confront you now. You in one of your overviews said, "Well, I don't see why Fireball's fourth level. I mean, you raised its level." And timeout. No, I didn't. It's a fifth level spell. In D&D, any edition, Fireball's a fifth level spell because you don't get it. You don't get third level spells until your fifth level. So it's a fifth level spell. I actually reduced it. I actually
Okay.
reduced it. So
That is fair.
so the dichotomy of the very confusing caster level versus spell level, I cut its throat and sacrificed it on the altar. And we fixed it. And so a
Take
fifth
care of
level
him.
caster can cast a fifth level spell. And that's even if you cast a first level spell with +4 spell points to ramp up its effectiveness. And
That
it's elegant and simple.
for a game that uh, doesn't well, your characters can go unlimited levels, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So
It's just the
not
template where we did the math. It's just like, here you go. But if you want to do levels 20, it holds up. Of course, a level
okay.
20 monster is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be awful.
Right. Okay. So cutting, like you said, cutting the throat isn't actually a bad idea. And again, it's very helpful for newbies who can't
Mhm.
wrap their head around THACO, let alone I am a third level magic user. Why can't I cast third level spells? What does level even mean then? That argument goes back to white box and you know okay, cool, that works, and it makes it just one less headache, right? One less
Yes. Yeah.
discussion trying to explain an obscure mechanic based on old
It's
Gygaxian. Um,
it's intuitive too. Like it just kind of makes sense, and that's why we did it.
like ascending armor class. That was.
Yeah.
I also big fan of the second edition thief abilities where you get to pick where you put your points so you can
Mhm.
specialize. It was a simple mechanic that's like, why does every thief have the same percentages across the
Yep.
board, plus or minus dex and race? That's kind of so they all went to the same Acme school of higher learning. That makes no sense. Being able to specialize just by you got this many points at this level, where do you put them? Well, I'm going to drop them into opening locks and find and remove traps because duh, you know. Now I got to ask, what does the future hold? Because while you went to a certain point in this book,
Mhm.
as in the player's handbook, are we going to see more spells, more higher level spells? Are we going to see like a 12th level spell anytime?
Well,
Have
you
you thought
you
about
already
that?
you already have you already have higher level spells. If you look at the scaling options, like on a lot of the
Mhm.
spells, they don't cap. So if you want to put like 8 extra spell points into Magic Missile and turn it into a ninth level version, you can. I think I capped it at 20 levels. I can't remember. But the thing is that that a lot of the spells are like you said, I folded them together. I took like all the raised spells and folded them into one spell group, and then the more points you put into it, it increases what you can, how what circumstances you can resurrect somebody under.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like if they're
Or
just
the,
like
the the big
nothing,
B's kind of hand spells.
yep, yep.
I love that. That was just
So,
like you cut
but
like
what we found
10 pages out of your work.
Oh, did oh huge, dude, massive. But if you look at the number of even in fifth edition, take the fifth edition player's handbook, the new one, the 2024, whatever you want to call it.
Never read it, but
Look at the
okay.
high level spells. There's like 4 eighth level spells. It's so you which is a set which is a 15th level spell using our terminology, right?
Okay.
So they're there. A lot of those are there. We just haven't done like the crazy. In my opinion, Wish doesn't need to be a spell. It absolutely does not. Um,
Mhm.
it's a game master fiat. It's do you screw the player or do you
Yeah,
don't?
it's one of the few things like I don't do resurrect in my game. Somebody died last night. They're not
Okay.
coming back.
Well, there
Um,
you go.
but 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 there are ways around it.
Sure.
But giving like the wish spell, I absolutely agree because when I was talking about deities and demigods, in my those videos. If you look at the old deities and demigods book, and deity X has magic user at 25th level, means every day he's casting a wish if he wants. And since he's already an immortal, he's not
He
worried
doesn't
about
care if he
anything.
ages 5 years.
So what are those gods really doing? What did they
Yeah.
do for the last 1,500 years before your dumb 40th level ass rolled up? Do you
So
really think they're not prepared for you? They
the
knew you were
sweet
coming.
spot, what we found, this is backed up by statistics, is the sweet spot is levels 5 to 7, and that's where the fun is. And but if you want to play higher level games, Dungeon Dwellers does, it's it's not a problem. You're going to have to change. You're going to have to give monsters more. I mean, that's just the way it is. Um,
For more
but
monsters.
monsters are terrible. Like look at my troll. Just look at the stats for the troll or the owl bear.
I
If they get a
get
hold
to it.
with both claws, it's over. Even if you're 4 levels higher than they are, it's over. Um, my publisher Ron Hawkins,
Hate
who's
one right
also
now.
yeah, baby. My publisher Ron Hawkins, who's also the chief operating officer and the creative director at Reaper Miniatures, he was like, these are horrible. Like he looks at the bottom of my monster, and I said, good, because it's a monster manual. It's not a stuff. It's not a gopher field guide. It's a book of horrible monsters that are here to threaten you. They're not here to challenge you. They're here to threaten you. Challenge is like you and me dance off right now. No, the owlbear is not going to dance with you. It's going to eat your face. And so the monsters are all scaled to be disproportionately awful. And that's why we don't use
That's
scounger
the way to
ratings.
go. And
Scounger ratings are dumb.
it the original monster manual soon became obsolete. Uh, you know, after just a few years, in my opinion, the ancient red dragon at 88 hit points. Well,
Yeah.
that's nothing.
Well,
That's
the
I've
only
got
way
three
it was
characters in my
scary,
party, not including the ranger, that have that many hit points. So
the
I
only
was like,
way that monster was scary is if it had like D6 buddies, which was awesome, which is a possibility, right? D6 ancient red dragons show up, but if they got initiative and they hit you with that 88 hit points, for breath weapon, and give me a save because that's one thing about earlier editions is saving throws were hard. And modern D&D has the way it's structured is if you are equal to the threat, or rather the threat is equal to you, you have a better than 65% chance of success. Where back in the old days, if you were facing something that was equal powered to you, you only had like a 35% chance of making that saving throw. And if you could add the dodge bonus from dexterity, which was optional. That was not a standard rule. That was optional. Yeah, maybe you got out of it okay, but there were so many monsters that were just like, if you got initiative, you were screwed.
mhm.
And most
Or
of the
better yet,
poisons
like
were save versus poison or die.
with the for me with like dragons and things like that, or liches, or any of the layered monsters that have a lair and they live there and they do stuff. If they knew you were coming, well, certain spell immunity, or anti magic shell, a couple other spells,
Yep.
and you don't even notice until you walk in the door and you see the red dragon and you start magic missile. Nothing happens. Uh-oh. Yeah, sorry. Your lightning bolt, your fireball, and your magic missile, no effect.
Yeah. Sorry,
You're gonna get
Jack.
up close.
Spell resistance.
Well, no, not even spell resistance. Minor globe of invulnerability.
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna get up close enough to dispel magic on that. Okay, make a saving throw for what? Breath. Oh shit.
Mhm.
You know, and you've
There's
got
no
to plan and
The
prepare and do
players are not
all
going to
that.
play fair, and the monsters aren't either.
Right. But that's that's only one third of your game. You have put in the training wheels, so to speak, because why not? I mean, it makes the product that much more accessible. There's a lot of games out there, that call themselves lethal. Okay, cool. So that's not the game for this middle school group that I host for at the school library, or the public library, on Saturdays or whatever, and that you're not going to sell that. This you can sell it to any group, and they can work with it. They can, find a way to make it theirs. I am hoping that you will go gonzo and make the advanced super high level crazy, you know, stuff someday. That's my jam because let's face it, when you've played or done anything a certain amount, you need a bigger challenge, and making the rules harder doesn't do that in every instance. Sometimes that just makes it like, well, you're handicapping me and thinking that's going to make it fun. I want challenge, but I want challenge up here, not just because I need to roll a 19 or a 20 and that's the only way I can succeed. It's not the same thing, or where I'm being nickel to death, Oh, well, you made 37 gold pieces after an 8-hour session. Woohoo! Oh, by the way, here comes the tax man. That's not fun. It may be hard, it may be challenging. Challenging is why am I coming back to the table when you can make a challenge that's, suddenly, this strange new race of humanoids is encroaching on the land and they do this or they're immune to that and you got to figure that stuff out. That's the challenge, not making the rules so complicated, so difficult where your chances are, well, your first level you need a 19 or a 20 to hit, or your saving throws are all 19s and 20s. Well, okay, I guess I'm going to just roll up 20 characters for the day and be ready. That's not
Yeah, the
that's not what I'm looking
DCC
for.
funnel,
It's not what I'm
which
looking
is
for. I'm
nothing wrong
looking
with
for
that. So you asked me what's in the
when you
future.
haven't done that 20 times and determined at the fifth time you hate that. Yes, when you want a real mental challenge through actual originality and creativity, give me a call. That's what I want. You know, I want something new. That's why I have played so many different games. We all have at this point. Why we have games like Boot Hill on our shelf. Every once in a while, we want that kind of a challenge. Every once in a while, we might want a Call of Cthulhu type challenge or Star Frontiers. They're completely different flavors, and when you get to a certain point, especially out here, mixing all those genres is sometimes the way to go. What do you think about that?
Well, well, let me answer one question really quickly first. Is that what's in the future? Players expansions, more magic. We want to add more classes. We want to add more folk. We have a lot of that stuff already drafted. I already have a perfectly good paladin, barbarian, bard, ranger. There's going to be a mystic in there somewhere. I don't like saying monk because there's basically two types of monks. There's the guy with like the friar tuck who makes beer, and then there's the warrior monk, which
Mhm.
is more of an Eastern thing. There were fighting monks in the Middle Ages, but they were very different. So there's a lot of that. Monster expansions, I want to do more. If you look at the Denizens book, it's volume one.
Mhm.
So we already have what we want to put in volume two. I'm working on an addendum to volume 1.5 right now. It's just a couple more monsters that people have requested. So there's going to be a lot of new stuff released. Campaign guides, setting expansions, Dreadmere, the Savage North, the Pellegrino Moray Coast. It's a vast world. We have an entire campaign guide. Um, anyways, it's just the way it is. Somebody just posted the whiff factor is bad design. I would actually pose it accept failure, but there's ways to stack the deck in your favor. You mentioned the fact that you can in our combat system you can actually like focus, and you can
Mhm.
also aim, and you can also like do flank attacks.
Mhm.
All those are available to you, but just the whiff factor, you miss, you fail rolls. There are consequences to that stuff. If you turn it into just stuff being routine, like one game did, where all you do is you just roll damage, that is a design choice. But to be perfectly honest with you, that just makes monsters have a million hit points. So now you're just chopping trees.
Yeah.
Um, and nothing wrong with that. If that's your groove, that's cool. I'm not judging, but
Mhm.
you know, uh, yeah, it's just one of those things. Draw steel. Person mentioned the auto hit from draw steel. That's where they do you just roll damage.
Mhm. Even
Um,
Palladium is kind of like that in a way. I mean,
well, yeah, because you hit on a 5 or better on a D20,
that's a
but
little
there's
too
so
much.
many ways to defend. There's a million ways to defend in that game, so
Right.
it's
Right.
okay.
I kind of like the idea of uh, your level should if you're fighting something that's I hate to use the word fair or at your level, but you kind of have to do that to a point. I mean, their first encounter is an ancient red dragon. That's wrong. That's just you don't do.
There should be whenever you write stories, whenever you create content, there should be a gradient, and not everything should be a slog. On the other hand, not everything should be a cakewalk. The game
Mhm.
master should be adjusting the content for the players. Years ago, I was playing Earth Dawn. I love Earth Dawn from FASA,
Right.
and the game master saw an adventure and said for character levels one through for 4 to 8 characters levels 1 through 3, circles 1 through 3. Okay, so 4 to 8 is 12, average is 6. So it's the average of 6 players of second level, because 1 to 3 is average 2.
Sure.
So we should have about 12 character levels. We were a party of 5 first circle characters. So guess what? In the opening encounter with 2 of these giant awful spiders, we got wiped. So we reset and tried again, and we got wiped again. And we tried a third time, and halfway through it, I just threw my hands up and said, I've had enough of this. Because the game master wasn't adjusting on the fly for what we were capable of handling. Tough
Mhm.
encounters are fine, but brutal slog one after another, it's okay
Mhm.
for the players to be badasses. It's okay for them to feel good about what they can
Yeah,
do.
and,
So
and, and,
enjoy
and
the
like
level you're at.
a situation like you just described, if that was done today, after the second time, you would have lost everybody.
They would have gotten up and walked.
And you
Modern
can't do.
players
I
don't
mean,
take failure real well.
and that's something I'm trying to teach my son is that
Yeah.
you've got to be you know firm and fair, but more than anything, you've got to be consistent.
Yeah.
And if you're none of those things, then you won't have them coming back to the table.
Yeah.
And a lot of DMs that I know, they think it's all about them. Okay, the DM is the most important because without them, you don't have a game. But without players, you've got a failed writer.
You just some creepy guy in a basement.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
And
one of the
you've
that's the
got
best
to
advice I can give to players. Yep.
you've got to have an understanding and a sort of an agreement. You know, you
Yep.
need them, they need you. Otherwise, they're going to be playing video games, and before you know it, so will you.
And
It's
I
literally
actually went into that a lot with the Game Master's book. I did a lot of practical advice and a lot of conceptual advice
yeah,
on how to
yeah.
do that.
This
So
is uh, literally one of the best DM guides. Now, mind you, I always say
that's
the
very,
DMG
very kind of you.
DMG is first. DMG is first because
Yep.
it's first. No matter, sorry, we wouldn't be here
Hey,
if it
hey,
wasn't.
hey, I'm okay with that.
Then came the Administrator's Guide for Top Secret SI because it was the first book to talk about uh, railroading and narrative and basically who Seth Skorkowski is, right? He's a YouTuber.
No, no.
Oh, really? Okay, so he's a really fun guy. Does some clever. Well, he did the seven Dungeon Master Deadly Sins, and I'm sure you can imagine what those are. Well, before he rolled around onto the scene, the Top Secret SI Administrator's Guide talked about more than just the seven. Everything it was everything you needed to know, but were afraid to ask and didn't know you didn't know. That even Gygax never talked about. And in its short, like 60 or 80 pages, it is a wonderful piece of history to where we come up with all the theories about good role playing and what to not do and how to encourage things and stuff. Yours is the best overall for beginning players who have either never played or need need a DM who can explain these things to them and walk them through it and make some of the better players that I imagine because there's a whole lot of things you got to learn the hard way and it's okay to have a a field guide, as it were, so that you can look stuff up and go into it with more information as a new DM or even as a new player. Be able to benefit from this advice and these ideas because so many games out there just take all that for granted or just like I said, assume you've been playing since the golden age
Yeah.
and that's great, but no one wants to be no one wants to write for the younger group, the younger players, and clearly, you have no problem with that, as well as working with some of the other kinds of players that you talked about, um, because the younger players out there, they're the future, and
Yeah.
the younger players have a lot of issues that we didn't have. We had, rub dirt on it. They have,
Yep.
well, here's your cry closet, here's your therapy session, here's your all these things that, we didn't have any of that. It's like, I don't want to see you till the streetlights come on, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
versus
it's
excuse
it's
me.
very interesting talking to younger gamers about their life experiences, and I found it really interesting when I talked to well, actually Ron Hawkins, and his kids don't ride their bikes home from school. Like they and I'm like I rode miles
Guys,
and
you know
rode
where
a
I'm going with this
skateboard,
one.
you know,
I've been a
and
stay at home.
it's not wrong. It's just a different world.
No, it is
It's a
wrong.
very
He's
different
absolutely
world.
wrong.
Yeah.
I retired
So
at 35. I retired at 35 so that I could be a stay-at-home dad, so that my son and I could ride our bikes through the desert, even when he was on in training wheels. Before that, I rode him in the back of a trailer. I rode my bike through the desert, literally, uh, to his elementary, through kindergarten, right up until high school. He was the only kid riding a bike to school for 9 years. Everybody else was being dropped off like
yep.
they're freaking,
Yeah.
royalty, while their
Well,
parents are
back
doing
seat
this in
too.
their car.
They ride in the back seat like they're being chauffeured, which I thought was always really funny. I'm not
And
judging on that. I'm like, well, it is what you do. But when I was a kid, when I was 6 or 7, my mom presented. I think it was 6. My mom presented the shoestring with the house key on it, and all of a sudden, I would come home and I would get myself into the house. I'd watch my Star Blazers on Channel 4, and I made myself a snack. Mom came home at 6 or 7. We had dinner. Sometimes I made dinner once I was 7 or 8 because I could make lasagna and heat things up. I could follow directions on the back of I mean, 450 for 20 minutes. Set a timer. So, but not everyone's raising their kids to be that self sufficient. Gen Xers are a very different creature. You know.
my, I'm going to brag a little bit about the boy. When he graduated high school this year, just turned 18. He had already worked for Emperor's Choice as a professional vexillologist. He uh, graduated as a major in JROTC, AP classes all the way for the last 2 years, 4.2 GPA, working on the school newspaper, was in a play. Um, what else did he do? He's got his own YouTube channel with half a dozen videos, um, all kind, just a stack of awards. Now, mind you, he hangs out with like-minded kids, but I go and pick him up from school or whatever, and I see the other kids, and the difference is night and day. The growing up, the riding the bike, the freedom, the having physical toys. He played with my Micronauts, my Star Wars figures. Anything I could save from being a kid, I did. He had it. He had a lot of our experiences, and that made a huge difference. He didn't want or need anything, but he also had to work for things. And he still had the same experiences with playing online video games and hanging out with the kids and doing that stuff. But the world is different, and he's got a few more tools in his mental toolbox than the rest of his kids.
I think it comes
Friends.
down to is that we have different kinds of coping mechanisms, right? And
Yeah.
so, it's in different expectations. Like, so once like I deal with all these these neurodivergents, and so it's how they and I'm always quick to learn their coping mechanisms. Like one of the guys has a ribbon, he has a red ribbon that he plays with as we play, and it comforts him, and that's okay. One
Mhm.
guy uses a pen because he can't stand the sound of a pencil scratching on paper. Now, to you and me, that's like that's
No,
that's
I literally I
you
don't
know,
use
but
pencils because I don't
but
make
everybody
mistakes.
else
I
but
can't
everyone
stand
has
mistakes.
different coping mechanisms.
Right,
But
right.
the important thing is to just kind of sort of find what works and support them. But like for example, if somebody was like, "Well, my kid wants to play in your game, but he's going to have his tablet he's going to be playing online games while he plays your game. And I'll be like, no, I want the kids' focus to be at the table. So playing games at my table, I don't care if it's a handheld. I don't care if it's a Switch. I don't care if it's their tablet. I don't want it at the table
Yeah.
because if I have to re-explain the situation when it's your turn in initiative order because you weren't following along, I'm going to skip you. And I'm not going to do this very often because if I notice that you'd rather be doing something else, I'll be like, well, go do something else. The game runs just fine with 6 players instead of 7.
Hmm.
In fact, it
Hmm.
probably runs better. But I do what I can to accommodate because I want them to feel supported and also welcome because autistics tend to, it's hard. They struggle within social
Hmm.
situations. And so finding a group of like-minded, even though they're really different from each other, they know that they're safe. And I know the whole idea of a safe space, but I think it's relevant. I think
Well,
it's
it's
reasonable.
different. I mean,
You know,
when you're a certain age, and we know it's just because of laziness. I'm just going to say that that's different.
there's always the possibility. Yeah, that's possible. But
I've
the thing
met a
is
lot of people like that, but I've also met people with literal physical and mental
yeah,
conditions that it's not they didn't nobody would choose that until they actually choose that, and those are the lazy people who choose it to get out of everything, and they'll have a long, predictable history
yeah.
of markers that
Well,
identify
what
them as
one
that.
of one of my players is emotionally disturbed, and he's just desperate for human contact, like safe human contact. He's 23 years old. He's never had a job. He's on disability. Um, he's very socially affected by his autism and his
Mhm.
ADHD and a number of other issues. But he feels safe at our table. And I think that's good, even though he's a little disruptive. We understand that, and so, but he feels engaged. But he does occasionally get a chunk taken out of him because, in spite of my efforts to kind of sort of guide him, anything short of a rebuke doesn't work because he's very stubborn, which is very consistent. Because
Mhm.
he gets on, it's like he just gets kind of sort of like he's like a hangnail. You have to keep messing with it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so it takes a little effort to kind of get him out of that mindset. So when he brings some nastiness to the table, I have to take him aside and you know, we have a conversation. We figure out if he's going to play that night or not, because he's just like, oh, but he's a nice guy. He's got a very sweet disposition. But one of the things we talked about was he doesn't have any ambitions. He stays at home all day. He's taken care of all day, and he plays video games all day. So when he comes to the table, he doesn't really have any other life experiences beyond playing StarCraft or playing Subnautica. And I'm interested in those things. I want to talk to him about those things, but I'm like, dude, you need to pick a different topic because right in the middle of this combat with orcs and goblins, I don't really want to hear about your Subnautica game or the next expansion because it's not relevant. So curb it. I don't want to hear
Mhm. Or maybe
it.
before or after the session, which is,
Sure.
as my guys know, sometimes that is the session. We're old guys, and normally I'm in the studio here at 4:30, and if we're lucky, by 5:30, we're actually playing, and then we end at 8:30 ish, 8:30, and we might be there for another half hour, 45 minutes, depending on how bad I need to go to the bathroom because I haven't moved from my spot here. Well, bless you for doing that, though. I mean, uh, some of the people that I admire the most are the folks that will, you know, minister to the folks that can benefit from this hobby. I don't know about you, but I would have been somewhere else if it wasn't for this hobby, and
Mhm.
that place, probably would have had bars on the doors and windows, had it not been for being able to find a creative outlet for my particular, you know, build, if you will. I was definitely uh, everything changed for me when I found this hobby. I finally found a thing that because I read a lot of comic books and you know did played and had my things going on, but there was just other than art class, which was very limited. I had no way to get these ideas out to make these stories or these worlds or make monsters and all that stuff. Um, we're really lucky to have this weird hobby because it's so different
Hmm.
from anything else we could choose. I mean, you pick any other hobby out there, and we either are completely as far away from that as possible, or oh yeah, we do that too. You know what I mean? With
Hmm.
crafting and lore and movies and books and TV and other games and things like that. We've taken a whole bunch of the other hobbies and found a place to incorporate them.
It's interesting hobby because we all share the same personality defect, and that is there's a missing puzzle piece in our soul, and for whatever reason, this hobby fills it. And it's really interesting because I've met people very late in life, and they're like, "Yeah, I've always liked science fiction. I like Star Trek." And you introduce them to this, and they're like, "Holy crap! I've been looking for this my entire life." On the other hand, you can run into somebody who likes reading science fiction and fantasy, like, "This is the biggest waste of time ever." They're like, "Why would I do this?" And because they have the puzzle piece, right? And it's just you have to have that defect in your personality. And
Mhm.
I think
I
that
wouldn't call it a
we're
defect, but
neurodivergent that way because the majority of people see what we do is like, this is the goofiest thing I've ever seen. And they're kind of right. Like, watch a table of gamers that are really into it, and it's goofy, but it's goofiest in the best way possible.
back in the 70s 80s, it was something you couldn't wear it on your sleeve. You had to kind of
Oh
hide it.
no.
It was like other things, take your pick, that you didn't want to share, but when you found your tribe, you found your group.
Hmm.
That's why for me, I absolutely loved Stranger Things. There were some things I didn't like, and not the things you might think, because whatever, it was 5 minutes here and there. It was like that was weak or lame or whatever. But the last episode, man, that was just
I big wide swipes. I really enjoyed it, and I get it. I mean, I
it
remember
was
being the outcasts when we were in middle school. We were playing Star Frontiers in the cafetorium with like 300 other kids. It was a bigger school, and so the kids were coming by and harassing us, and we were just trying to get through that opening scenario with a Sathar giant slug creature, and so what happened was is that instead of just letting it play out, which would have resulted in like hospital stays for the other kids when I inevitably lost it. What ended up happening is the cafeteria teacher, supervisors, and also the principal, who'd known me since I was in kindergarten. What they did is they would set up they would have leave a couple tables up on the cafetorium because it was an auditorium too. They
right,
had
right,
these
right.
big, huge, thick curtains, and they put up a couple tables back there, up on the stage. And so we would just get our lunch and we'd walk back there and we'd play
Who
for
else was I
45
talking about?
minutes.
Did the same exact thing? Was it you
And it
or
might have been me. I don't think we ever talked about it, but I've talked about it elsewhere. But they
okay?
protected us,
Maybe.
and it
Okay.
was really cool because they looked after us. And but when we got to middle school, like it was kind of back more, or when I got to the next grade, like eighth grade, it was back to the same until we found out that the home ec teacher would let us in, and so she let us use the space. So we'd go in there and play Marvel superheroes. My first experience with Gamma World Second Edition, Gamma World in general, was in that home ec room, rolling up my character and exploring the ruins of Pittsburgh.
Nice. I love Gamma World. I was at a different end of that spectrum. I was uh, as far back as I can remember with the leather jacket, long hair crowd, as you can probably guess, and so people just thought we were just like planning a school shooting or some sort of weird terroristic fantasies, and they just left us the hell alone. But I
Mm-hmm.
had friends because I worked at the game shop, and I knew seeing them at the game shop, and I knew like that group. Okay, that's like a Gamma World group. That's a D&D group, but they don't want anybody to know. It's like, okay, it's like we're cool,
I
just
there was one
it
guy
was
who was part of my game group, and he was openly gay, but he was a closet gamer. And I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, well, can't you be proud of both? I mean,
not yet.
like, how is
I
being a gamer? I guess I was a little offended, but I mean, it's his life. I support his choices. I was just
Well,
like,
it's like this.
oh, okay.
It's really simple. Was it before or after the first year of Soap? You remember that TV show?
It was way after that. This was only
Okay,
like 10 years ago,
then that's
15
why.
years ago. It was
That's why.
way after that.
Funny story, real quick. I was watching the show Soap as when it first ran. So I was like 10 or 12 years old, watching it, laughing my ass off, understanding it. My parents, who want nothing to do with it, they're watching other stuff, and they're like, "How do you understand this?" And that's when Billy Crystal played the first
Yep.
openly gay character. So that was like more acceptable than this weird hobby where you're fighting dragons and orcs, and what the hell's an orc?
Yep.
And playing with these silly dice and these little metal army men, and it seemed like uh, something incredibly childish, but but to be honest, it wasn't. It was very uh, grown up in the way that we were adhering to rules that we all agreed to, and
Yeah.
kept doing these things and building a story and relationships, and being able to use our imagination to solve problems, which is one of the biggest advantages of this hobby, and why um, I think some powers that be would, if they could, they would stifle it, because everybody I've ever met who's played these games at some point, uh, you know, moves on to something very um, intellectually dependent, where they need to be able to solve problems in their job, their career, one way or the other. Um, Whereas a lot of other folks I know my age, they solve everything with the cell phone. Every problem is either look it up or call for help.
Well, it's interesting because is that tabletop gaming teaches a lot of really important skills, and it teaches empathy, it teaches problem solving, it teaches management, it teaches
Math.
cooperation, teaches math, it teaches a lot. And so there's a lot of advantages to it, but it all takes effort. And that's the thing about, is the juice worth the squeeze? Because that's where World of Warcraft really delivers on a great experience. And all massively multiplayer games do in that respect is that they're instantly available. They provide very tangible rewards. They provide community, right? And they it hits on everything that 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 we can't in some ways without a lot of effort, right?
Mhm.
So it's the instant availability is just like is the same as like a crappy McDonald's cheeseburger. It's like,
Well,
yeah, it can be tasty, it can be, but it's instantly available and it's cheap. But what we do is a little bit more gourmet and a little more boutique. So it's hard to kind of get people to kind of move away from one into the other. I had one guy at point blank just told me when I was working in a writer's hobby shop, he goes, "What's the frickin' point?" He says, "World of Warcraft's available 24/7, and there's nobody, no game master telling me what to do." That was his big thing. He says, "I don't want someone telling me what to do." And I was
well,
like,
then you played with
"Well,
the
he's
wrong
kind of
group.
right. Yeah,
Uh,
he's kind of right, but
yes and no. But you know, uh, I've seen it throughout my life uh, the hobby influence things in the regular world. The phrase leveling up, I always talk about how
mm-hmm,
that didn't exist until this, but it's all very much like a very long mental exercise, a sort of a what if strategizing about everyday ish survival. What would you do in this kind of situation?
mm-hmm,
My old man would hit me with these. Okay, you're here in the woods. What do you do if you get lost? You know, different mental exercises. Even the military uses a lot of these techniques in their military intelligence and game theory, etc. Um, all of this goes hand in hand with all that, which I think is Stoner Gamers Unite. We had the Van Halen Iron Maiden playing in the background, guys. I started growing my hair out again with the very first video several years ago, because I want people to know that I did certain things. I don't advocate any of that crap anymore, other than listening to Iron Maiden, Van Halen, Judas Priest, my favorite band, Blue Oyster Cult. Um, and thank the guys at Reaper for making it so easy to make a Blue Oyster cultist by just turning this around. Hold on, where is he? Where is he? Here he is. I just flipped it around, painted it like the album cover. The most fun I've had in a long time painting miniatures, um, which is it's just the best thing that could have happened to me and a lot of people I know. And I hope to get to do this for a good long time. And
Hmm.
uh, you know, I've had a lot of dreams come true that I didn't know. Getting into this hobby back in the day, I never thought, even though I grew up in the same state as David A. Hargrave, I never thought I'd get to work on Arduin. I never thought I would see Dungeon Dwellers come back. Just the name and the logo is enough to just like, oh man, I had so much fun with the Heritage paint and play sets as a kid. I couldn't wait to get home and paint or roll the dice and go through the caverns of doom and see what was going to happen. I played that probably 100 times over and over and over. I even got to when I before I had my player's handbook, I started like trying to write up stats for. I remember the Knoll miniatures and the Bugbear miniatures, so that I could put them in that game. And I'm like, what am I doing? I can just go get the monster manual and the player's handbook for D&D and next
You
thing you
know,
know, I'm here uh, having so much fun on a
it,
regular basis, still doing this thing, and now it's freaking mainstream.
yeah.
I almost wish it wasn't. Is that maybe a bad
Eh,
person? To long for the days where we had to shh.
well,
You know?
I'm okay with it. I mean, I have some misgivings about some of the Johnny Come Latelys stealing a lot of thunder,
Mhm.
but if it brings more people to the hobby, it's fine. People ask me, "Oh, you must love Critical Role," and I go, "No, I don't." But I don't yuck it. I'm like, it's just I have a lot going on, and so well, just
I've
listen
never
to it in
seen
the
a single
car. I
episode.
can't.
Uh,
I can't. I zone out and I work on my own stuff while I'm in the car. So it's nothing wrong with that. All of that has, Stephen Colbert talking about his experience. Vin Diesel having Melkor on his tattoo. That's cool. But the thing is if it gets more people to play with us, that's great. Now, if we can just get them to play something besides Wizards of the Coast stuff, that'd be great. You know, they already have 96% of the market. They don't need the other 4%. Let us have
well,
a little fun. Um, but if it gets them to try out new stuff, great. I'm all for it. And
well, I
that's
mean,
why I'm doing what I'm doing.
how many Wizards of the Coast people have you met that have eventually put it down and went diving into the past?
I know lots of people who have just abandoned it, but I know a lot of people who keep coming back to it, and I have some very strong opinions about the moral, ethical orientation of that company. But they're my own opinions; they're not Reapers. So, but I encourage people to try out lots of stuff. Like try Dark Age, the Dark Eye from Ulysses Spiel. It's
I've
wonderful.
got it in my garage. I got it from
You know,
Rob Warren from Rob's Tabletop World. I bought a bunch of his stuff and
try
I put it
Roll
on the shelf.
Master, which you haven't read, which it shocked me. I'm like, you haven't done Roll Master? Oh
Did
my god!
Rollmaster have uh, the complete alchemist, the complete
Yeah,
spellcaster? Okay, I have.
yeah.
I've read
Okay.
it, and I have some of them. There's so many games that I get confused.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Dragon Rage, Dragon Slayer, Dragon Bait, Dragon freaking Hangnail, like you said. It's just like
Dragon
Dragon
Raid.
Two.
Dragon
Um,
Raid. Nice reference. That's cool.
I
That's the
have them.
Christian.
I have them
That's
all.
the.
Dude, my
I think that's the
collection is
Christian
legendary.
role playing game. I think that's the Christian one. Not a bad game. But
Dragon Horde.
I
I
don't
would
have
pay
that one.
the Dwarf Star games from
Which is the one
Heritage.
that had the, which is the one that had which is the one that had the war penguins and the war hedgehogs and the dragons that looked like basilisk wizards.
Mhm.
Was that it was dragon something. But anyways, that was one of the games my buddy liked because it came with a cassette tape. You could use that as your game
Okay.
master.
I
Yeah,
definitely didn't have that.
yeah.
I've got
But it
all
had war
the
hedgehogs.
old Heritage Dwarf Star little mini box. You know, Barbarian Prince and
I believe Reaper owns the rights to all those.
now really since when?
Yep. And for a long time, I think they came with Heritage because we provide a link to it so you can download the PDFs of all of them.
Well, except for Dragon Horde.
Possibly, I don't know, but I haven't been to the
No.
website to know for sure. But there was a brick of all of those titles because I was initially hired to work on an update to Barbarian Prince.
I,
But we
I would literally literally pay
abandoned it.
money to play any one of those games, even Grab Armor or Goblin. I've owned them for decades. Can't find anybody to play them because they are what they are. They're old
Yeah.
shit counter. Who wants
Well,
to play these old
well,
grandpa games?
Barbarian Prince is a great example of, oh man, this is a mean game.
Our friend OG Off Grid Gamer, who's just here, just went and downloaded that one for free because he'd been looking for it for years. And I'm like, well, if you buy it on the open market, you're going to pay $500. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah,
Well,
but
Reaper
if you want it for
provides,
free,
I believe they're PDFs of all components and the rule books and the map.
hmm hmm the one I
So,
really, really want to play besides Dragon Horde is like Dark Lord or Demon Lord, or whatever the where you're. It's like a Tolkien-esque war game, but one side's oh man, all that old stuff that I'll never
I always
ever
like the micro games, Ogre and
have them all.
GEV and
I got them all.
Necromancer. I love Necromancer. That's a great game.
I've
Smith's
got
Revenge and
I've
Awful
got
Green
all the
Things and
micro
Marketplace.
games. Most I might I don't have all the historical micros, but I've got most of the micros. I've got all the task force. I've got most of the TSR. I've got
I
what's the
always
other
wanted to
one?
get Rivets. Rivets always look like fun.
That's most of them you can pick up for 20-30 bucks,
Hmm.
but you read it, it's like 12 pages, and then you're like, well, that was expensive, because you're never going to find a player. Or if you
Yeah.
do, one of my goals is to open up a game shop in Texas, and I plan on it being somewhere near Reaper, the factory, mostly because I have a lot of friends in Texas, but I've always wanted to live in Texas. And I figure, the only way I'm going to ever get to play these games is to open up a shop and have a board where I'm like, you come in here, you're playing this game on Tuesday. If you don't want to play this game, don't come in on Tuesday.
Well,
Unless,
bring in your. It'll be Classics Tuesday.
something, man, because
Yeah.
CR is first and foremost a production. It doesn't inspire me at all. I'm not sure what you mean by CR, Daryl. Are you talking combat rating or challenge rating?
Challenge rating. Challenge
Okay.
rating was something that was introduced in D&D 3.0 and then carried forward through Pathfinder.
Mhm.
I think it never has worked right. It doesn't factor in a lot of things. It tries to. It tries to codify and ultimately make games fair. But I've stuck to it. I've tried to use the mechanics laid out in the various books using CR, and I've ultimately found the encounters from them to be very unsatisfying. So we don't
What
use it.
about because I've always had nothing but success with the old AD&D dungeon level monster tables. Like the first level dungeon has this, second level could have this.
Yeah,
Within their
yeah.
system, I never had
We
any problems with that because, for the most part, there was just going to be something else around the corner.
so in Dungeon Dwellers, first of all, I didn't even. Okay, I have a love hate relationship with Wandering Monster Encounter tables. I don't mind putting them in individual adventures, but trying to create a unified field theory to Wandering Monster Encounters just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I create my own for adventures. I literally sit down with a post-it, and I'm like, okay, tonight's adventure is taking place in a hill, in a ruin. These are the crappy monsters I want players to potentially run into. That's what I do. Sometimes I don't even write it down. I just have an idea. And I expect game masters to kind of do the same thing. You just kind of create your own, structure. Your own what you expect in the game. Do you even
Mhm.
want wandering monsters? If you don't want them, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So in the
I think it
Denizens
really
book,
depends on the location, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, totally.
if it's a
And
dungeon, you might have a gelatinous cube or some animated skeletons that are walking around patrolling the place because the wizard did that.
the
But if it's
dungeon doesn't know what level you are. The dungeon doesn't know. So the
Mhm.
dungeon doesn't care. And so if you run into D4 Minotaurs and it's outside of your CR, it's outside of your challenge rating, I hope you might want to retreat.
Well,
I don't think every dungeon needs to be a brutal slog, but there should be some variables to it that push
there
things
should be some
around.
stuff that pushes you. You know, like you were talking about in the book, when you get to the big boss room at the end. Okay, that's where you can kind of throw those minotaurs, you
Hmm.
know, in your first level, second level, whatever dungeon. But I think that like luring or not warning away the player characters from just because it's relatively close to the town you're in at first level, that mountain that says "Here be dragons," you
Yep.
should kind of warn them away from that. But if
Yes.
you go,
Well,
hey, but you know, there's this other dungeon over here that people say, you know, whatever. You kind of gotta lead them
some
away from or toward
and some game
within
masters
reason.
bait and switch, which is also problematic. I know
Yeah,
some
if you
game
do that,
masters
you're
are
just a
like,
bad person.
yeah, they present like one thing and then they give another. I knew a couple years ago I was at Kubla Khan and there was a game master running AD&D First Edition for his homeboys, and it was a pretty disorganized affair. Like people were showing up very late for it, and so the game master himself wasn't
Kind of
like
cool.
wasn't real sharp on the rules. Not that I cared. I was just like, well, just tell me what you want me to do. But at one point, the game master presents. He's got one of those. I can't remember the name of the product line, but it's a modern OSR product line with brightly colored exteriors, very glossy, kind of like the Game On kind of a spell, kind of a knock spell kind of a product. But anyways, it was like a tropical setting with a lot of islands to explore and stuff. The game master clearly wanted us to go to this certain place. That's what he wanted to run, and we were all like first levels, and so we were like, well, can you point us in the direction of the first level adventures? Oh, don't worry about it. This one's levels 2 through 4, but I'll modify it. Okay. So he told us, he was like, well, and so we get into it. He didn't modify crap. Every round, the monster hit somebody and they were down. Next round, somebody got hit, they went down. If we were lucky, we found a potion to get them back on their feet. If not, it just, we felt it move slowly, round by round, towards a total party kill. And the game master was just kind of like, well, I didn't force you guys to go here. Actually, you did. So you totally did.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm done. I'm gonna go away now. You guys have a great night. And that's just kind of how the whole
Mhm.
thing. And
Mhm.
what happened is the other players started drifting off too, because I watched them. I withdrew and went to a balcony and watched the game kind of just peter out as everyone just got sick of it. But that was a good example of a game master who wanted to play levels 2 through 4. Well, why didn't you make us like level 3 characters?
How hard is that?
Oh,
You
problem
just advance
solved.
from first levels to second, third level.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but you know, for me, those charts always worked. I mean, there's some modifications and additions and
yeah.
subtractions and whatnot, but you know, for the most part, you know, there's we can kill them at any time as DMs. We don't
Oh
need.
yeah.
I mean, literally any time. It's like make a saving throw. What? Oh, someone poisoned your drink. What? You know, whatever. But you know, trying to do that balancing act where it's you know, I look at it like just 50-50. You know, if it's 50-50, that's the best they can ask for or hope for. If it's skewed too much in one way or the other, you know, because there's nothing preventing a 10th level group of monsters from going back to keep on the Borderlands, you know,
Yeah.
just to see what's up. And yeah, it's there's more kobolds and orcs that move back in.
Well,
Okay, well
keep on the
let's clear it.
Borderlands. It's a perfect example of an adventure not written with challenge ratings in mind. I mean, like you trigger the wrong monster in that adventure, and there's like 30 orcs who, by the way, bring their 4 or 5 hit die Minotaur buddy in the +1 chainmail with a +1 battle axe as
Or the whites
reinforcement.
happen to hear all the noise and
Yeah,
want to do
yeah.
something off,
You know,
and then
so so
they may be helping you at first. They're just clearing a path.
possibly. But the thing is that the other thing about Wandering Monsters is I think it's more insidious, but it's more tied to production that I think that a lot of people forget. And that is a Wandering Monster table is only as good as the last monster update. Like if I come out with Denizens of the Dungeon 2, all of the Wandering Monster tables in the Denizens Book 1 are useless because it doesn't incorporate the monsters from the second book.
Mhm.
So what happens is you have to update the encounter tables for the second book, but there's only so many results you can get off of a D100 roll. So you end up having to create like a D1000 chart by the tenth
Yeah,
monster
the
book.
Monster Manual 2 and 3, not 2 and 3, 2 and Fiend Folio. Eventually you just went to the late, whichever one was the later one, and used that.
Yeah, yeah,
Or figured it out by then and just made your own. You know,
exactly. It takes a lot of time to set up an encounter table, and
mhm.
so if you're going to provide stat blocks and stuff, because when I write up an adventure, I always provide that. I don't just say three scourges. I'm like, here's three sturges and here's their stat block, and you're good to go, and it's
Yeah,
in
I,
line with the
I
text.
hate
That
that
way you're
kind
not
of
like thumbing through multiple
uh,
books.
actual work when I'm writing, because I do write
Yeah,
for a few people. I hate having to do that, but you got to do it because otherwise, they've got to stop what they're doing and pick up another book and look up that maybe
yeah.
unimportant information, maybe crucial information, uh, right then and there in the middle of the game. And you know, you can wing it. Ad libbing
Yeah.
and improvisation is the number one skill you need as a GM, which eventually leads to doing what you do, what I do on a lesser extent for other folks, creating your own game or working on other games, making up crap out of nothing. Just out of what's up here and your experiences and creating a whole new thing for people to enjoy, and that's the best part of it. When you boil it all down, we have found a way to turn our favorite thing, sort of, because we may have other favorite
It
things.
I have
Uh,
lots of favorite things, but it is my favorite form of entertainment. It really is. And it's weird because I didn't know anything about it. A lot of people come into it like through secondhand smoke. It's like their brother brings it home from college, or they have like they go camping and they meet another kid who's into it and they learn it that way. But I learned it just out of the blue. Like nobody in my neighborhood knew anything about it. No one had prior experience with it. So when I was reading the article, in the Dynamite magazine in the third grade, it just clicked. It was weird. And I look back at how fixated, how one track minded I became about it. And
Same
I'd
here.
never done it. And it was
Um,
weird. And it still is weird.
I wrote an
Um,
article years ago for I forget who it was, but it was called My First Love because I had crushes on girls, but until you get your actual first real smooch, it don't mean anything. You know what I mean? Um, Before any of that, I was 11 or 12, and I got invited to a game, and my dungeon master was being an asshat. Um, we had managed to get some potions of invisibility, but because the gnolls or whatever also had potions of invisibility, they could see us
okay.
and just
Okay.
total party kill. And I went out and I bought my player's handbook. He's like, "You're not supposed to have that." I'm like, "It says right here on the cover, player's handbook. What are you talking about? You're not supposed to have that. I don't want you having that. You're not supposed to know anything. It's all me." Like, well, guess what? I mow lawns in my free time. I'm gonna work a little harder and grab myself a dungeon master's guide and see what's going on. And he said, "Okay, fine. I'm not dungeon master anymore. You are." I'm like, from that point on, it was off to the races.
In our
And
game master's book, I tell the story about how I learned to game master out of spite. I
I
didn't
read. I
receive
did
sort of.
enjoy that.
It's at the
Uh,
very beginning, and I wrote a 1 page intro of why I started game mastering. But I mean,
I
there's
was
more to it than that. But
kind of
yeah,
similar, Spidey.
yeah.
I'll
It's like,
show
oh yeah,
you,
I'll
but
show
it
you.
was
Yeah,
it was literally
yeah,
my first love. Because everything else was just reading a book or watching a show. Yeah, I love it, but there's nothing I could do with it. Here was
yeah.
something I could do something with this information. I could
Well,
make things
it
happen.
becomes
Right?
yours. It
Yeah.
becomes yours. Like you can read. Everyone reads the Conan Tower of the Elephant, right? And it's very personal. It's a
Mhm.
beautiful story, but it's going to be the same way every time. Whereas if I tell a story takes place in the Hyborian world, maybe something that I created from whole cloth, or even if I write that, even if I write convert that into a little adventure, it's going to be mine now,
Mhm.
right? And that's where I think it's very cool. And the same thing for players is that's theirs. It's very cool.
One last thing before I let you go, because I'm gonna have to go do some people stuff.
I
I
have to
call.
have lunch.
Um, when you're doing your things, uh, and I find myself doing this more and more as I get older. Do you put even more like personal nods, like a little wink and a nudge, like people's names or naming places after people that are maybe gone, or fond memories that only you're
the
gonna know?
the
The
urge to marry Sue is strong. So there is only one. I put a little bit of myself in everything I write, but and that's just natural. It's just what we do. Um, and but there's one character that I put in Brinewind, which is our pirate city off the edge of the map, down in the Savage Coast area. And there's a character named Wylot, and his name is Albor Wylot, and he's just this poor set upon scribe. When I was struggling the hardest at different points of our process, I was Albor Wylot. I was stuck in the middle of nowhere by myself, writing by myself with a very, very difficult goal. Because writing three 200-page books, plus adventures, plus supplemental material, plus managing a bunch of other stuff was very difficult. So I put Albor Wylot into the world as my Mary Sue. And so he's set upon with a task that's far greater than him, and there's a lot riding on it, I guess. Um, so that's really the only thing that I've snuck in. There is a halfling named Rosie that runs the Green Griffin in Barrowgate
Mhm.
in the Hills Edge province, and that is my wife. So that is like the only two significant, uh, yeah, Mary Sue's. There's I borrowed names from
I
different
don't know that I would
characters.
call it Mary Sue's. It's more like
It's not a
just
true
like
Mary Sue, but
it's just
yeah, but
like
it's a
that
nod.
name, trying making sure that if that person were to ever come across this, they'd be going, I wonder if they named that after me.
Oh,
You know what I
there is
mean?
something else. Green. Okay, in the Hills Edge province, kind of centrally located, there's this remnants of an old primeval forest. Uh, it's called the Greenwood, which is a nod to both Tolkien and Ed Greenwood, who to some extent mentored me when I wrote Skullport for AD&D Second Edition.
Okay.
Um, and so the town that's there, the village, or it's a town, the town that's there is called Greenwood End. And so I reached out to Ed and asked it if it was okay, because that's what I was thinking. I was thinking of him when I invented that area, because I wanted to be very um, Cormiery, very Dale Landsy. I wanted it to be very pastoral, and I wanted, and so it was very inspired by his work in the Forgotten Realms, and so I wanted to make sure he got credit and I got permission. He goes, "No, do it," and so I made sure to send those books to him.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, Art, the Emperor's Choice Company. Uh, you're familiar with Tankar's Tavern, right?
Oh yeah, I know Tankar. I know Eric.
Emperor's Choice, on one of their maps, they put out the one, not the one that my son worked on, but the other one. Tankar's Tavern is a location on the map, as are the
Oh,
Shadow and Sun Mountains. Stephen remembered. They surprised the hell out of us because we've helped with so many things, and just
that's a
been,
prop. That's a proper nod. That's awesome.
yeah. So no matter what happens, you know where to find me if I disappear. I'm over there lording over my mountain range, getting ready to annex the next valley over. This was a fabulous time talking to you. Stay on after I shut down the show, so we can have a quick conversation, because I have to go do a thing, and you look like you're starving. I'm getting pretty hungry too, but
I have a game at 6 tonight, so I've got to get my Dragonbane stuff together and get it moved
no worries, no
upstairs.
worries.
But
Everybody out
I'm
there,
available for a few more minutes. It's okay.
where can they get a hold of you? Uh,
ReaperMini.com has a nice forum for dungeon dwellers, so we have our own little section at the bottom. Also, the Reaper Miniatures Discord server, we both have a Dungeon Dwellers Kickstarter and also a Dungeon Dwellers discussion. It's very
Okay.
active, a lot of very nice people there.
Can you send a link to the Discord so that folks can find it?
I'll send
You
it to
send it
you.
to me. Yeah, you send it to me in the private chat, and then I'll post it because you won't be able to post it. And then I'll post it. And anybody who's interested, including myself, can go over there and request admittance to said Discord server so that they can get a hold of you guys. Because I'm going to keep reading this, and I'm going to keep buying Reaper miniatures and even their paints because I do like their paints. Even though I've got other paints here, and I will be looking forward to any new stuff. Um, I'm kind of bummed because I didn't buy the hat or the shirt. I don't know why, because I would wear them all the damn time on the show, and I also need to maybe get the DM screen because maybe one day I will run this game.
Oh man,
Uh,
the GM screen is awesome. It's bulletproof.
I saw that and I don't know why I didn't get it. And when I realized that I didn't get it, it was too late to get it. So what are you gonna
So
do?
it is my sincere hope that very, very soon we have about 200 people that haven't answered their emails. Their backers that haven't answered their emails and paid both the tax and also their shipping costs. But I believe we're giving them to like I think September something or other, maybe the end of September, to get that information in. And then after that, if any unclaimed physical stuff is going to be put on the web store. I'm hoping we can also get our stuff into distribution so that the game stores can carry our stuff too. And then once we sell out on the first batch of the stuff, we'll do reprints. I sincerely hope.
Okay, cool. I will keep my eyes open for that. Let me get this in there because I spend an obscene amount of money on this stuff monthly, and um,
I can kind of relate. My RPG collection when we moved across country twice weighed a metric ton. It was 47 full bankers boxes full of just rule books, not miniatures, not dice, not anything ancillary, just rule books. My wife weighed it and then informed me.
what the hell? I can't get this to. Okay, there you guys go. Good guys go. So, folks, thanks for sticking around, playing along. If you want the links, they're there. Hopefully, you guys can start up some new conversations and get into this and see if it's for you. Is there a place to get the PDFs if that's all they want and cannot afford to?
DriveThruRPG.com has the three core rule books, the Adventure Anthology, and the Horror on Howling Heath, which is a great little first level adventure, should be available very soon. The PDFs are priced to move; they're dirt cheap. They're like $10 each for 200
That's
page books, and the GM book is like much thicker, and it's the same price.
dude. I
Dirt cheap.
almost when I got the Kickstarter, I'm like, holy crap! This is like it was like 14 kilograms, which I don't know how much that is in pounds. It was one of the heaviest Kickstarters I've ever gotten, and I get
Yep.
Kickstarters that are like a cubic meter of plastic. I'm like, this is amazing. I open it up, pull out the miniatures. It's like, okay, that wasn't the weight. I pull out the box of books, and I'm like, this is. I love the bookmark. I love the page uh, composition, the material, the cover,
That's all
everything is just
Ron.
like
That's all Ron. He did all the layout and all the editing, so that's all Ron. I
in
just did the
the
text.
physical material, the
Hmm.
glossy pages, all that. Um, it definitely happy with it. But I know a lot of
Me
people out
too.
there that are PDF guys and then don't want to buy anything until they can read it first. I'm like, well, you're spoiled. I just take the plunge. If I see like even a hint, a whiff of something that I'm interested in, I will probably grab the book, the hardcover, if possible. And I'm glad I made this one. Sight unseen though, I knew it's like it says Dungeon Dwellers. You know, I've been all in since. Does it even say on the shirt? This shirt, no way. No way. Dave Campbell, good friend of mine. Copyright 2008, which happens to be my son's birthday. That's when I got the shirt. Um, Now I got to go hang it up on the picture frame uh, in the museum because I'm not going to be wearing it again unless I have you back on the show. Anytime you want to, if you see the link, just click it and come on in. We can have
I'd be
up to
happy to
five
come
people.
back, dude. It's been wonderful.
It really has, and I think everybody else would agree. You were a wonderful, wonderful guest, and you seem like a really good guy. So I hope to maybe one day get to sit at your table, maybe vice
Yeah.
versa. You know, especially when I get to Texas. Uh, I definitely expect to see you at ReaperCon.
Come to
Along
ReaperCon,
with,
man. It's a good time.
I have been. I had to stay home until the boy was out of high school.
Yeah.
Now he's getting ready to do the college thing, and me disappearing, he won't even notice. So he got his, he just got his own car, and 18. It's who are his parents? We're just people who pay the bills. Um,
Hmm.
so I will see you later. Well, stick around after I close down the show. Everybody else, I'll be back tomorrow with another video.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yep.
second breakfast at 9 a.m. Hope to see you guys there. Until then,